Chapter 711, Spring Dream. Chunmeng 2. Xiao Ran thinks of her mother's embrace. Looking back, everything was full of boredom in her childhood. So why did she always stay at home until the end instead of leaving? There are plenty of reasons, but if she had to choose just one, it must have been her mother's embrace. When she was nestled within the warmth of Kim Yian's embrace, regardless of the boredom or anything else, it always felt cozy. The embrace she recently experienced again was no different. It was cozy, and she realizes the warmth that was delivered through Kim Yian's entering heavens beyond the path. She wants to see that realm once more. Let's go. She feels that heading toward that realm is, somehow, her very fate. To that realm of mothers, let's go. She will reach it no matter what. Even if she is without parents, she cannot keep crying while doing drugs. With my own feet, let's enter that domain. Clang. It is when such thoughts arise. Xiao Ran suddenly becomes aware that someone has appeared before her. Shiver. And that being is someone who clearly knows who Xiao Ran is. Mountain Spirit. It is the old man she always called Sir Mountain Spirit. That old man who always appears with black flowers, now holds a flower basket full of black flowers in one hand. Why do you insist on walking such a harsh path, Ran? Have I not done everything for you? When you felt stifled by your parents, I made it so you could be apart from them. When you were weary of repeated fate, I scattered the ancient force of previous Zhongming enders into this world, spreading a more advanced fate across the world. The guns you so enjoyed and saw as an escape from martial arts. The newspapers that entertained you and kept boredom away. The drugs you indulged in with great pleasure. All of them are things that could only emerge from a more advanced fate and more advanced civilization. All of them were prepared by me for you. Quote. So why do you not enjoy these pleasures further? Why do you insist on chasing after something so empty? Is there something more you need? Quote. There is nothing more I need, Sir Mountain Spirit. No, Sir Flower Spirit. Xiao Ran speaks as she reconsiders the old man's identity through her sharpened sense of flow. Now I finally understand. Sir Divine Spirit is not the Mountain Spirit, are you? Now that I think about it, the feeling I sensed from Sword Peak Mountain, and the flow I sense from Sir Divine Spirit, are far too different. From the beginning, you were never the Divine Spirit of Sword Peak Mountain. That is right, I am not something vile like a Mountain Spirit. In fact, the Mountain Spirit of Sword Peak Mountain was someone else. Pardon, are you saying there was another Mountain Spirit? Haha, and what reason is there to tell you that? There's no need for you to know. Now, I advise you for the last time. Turn back, return to the villa and enjoy the delightful drugs. Don't waste time chasing such vain things. For a time, Xiao Ran and the old man face off. Then, Xiao Ran finally opens her mouth. The domain my mother reached is not something meaningless. It seems there's no point in speaking further. The old man who has confirmed the resolve that has settled in Xiao Ran's heart. The Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable nods. Then, just like your parents and kin who died first, you too are my enemy. I am this unruly realm itself. Therefore, you have now made this entire world your enemy. Is that so? You have now turned the flow of the era into your enemy. Xiao Ran nods as she receives the words of Sal Tree. Then she speaks. My mother faced the flow of the era head-on with her own strength alone. If I can just enter that domain, then the flow of the era or whatever doesn't matter. So, please, do not block my path any longer, and never appear before me again. At Xiao Ran's outcry, the lingering thought of Sal Tree fades away. And as she steps over the spot where the fading remnant once was, she smiles. I will reach it, mother. No matter what she must do. Vowing those words, Xiao Ran returns to Zhengyang City, to the royal guards. Xiao Ran begins practicing martial arts again, which she has neglected until now. She also continues refining the shooting method that combines martial techniques with marksmanship. In order to reach that realm without fail, she hones every part of herself and trains in unifying all her thought nian into one. 1 year passes. Kong Minhee remains by her side. Xiao Ran refines herself, and to ensure her training time is firmly guaranteed, she properly pledges loyalty to the current emperor, upholding him as the core of Yun Kingdom. 2 years pass. Kong Minhee begins to record Xiao Ran's journey. Xiao Ran rises to become the center of Yun Kingdom, and as she follows the orders of the emperor, who again seeks to centralize authority, she secures even more training time, and earns the right to consume all manner of elixirs. 3 years pass. Kong Minhee starts to follow her everywhere. At last, Seo Ran somewhat succeeds in laying the foundations for the emperor's centralized rule. And finally, over a decade later, Kong Minhee can only be astonished. Seo Ran surpasses peak master and reaches the realm of 5 energies converging to the origin in a single go. Doo-doo-dook, duck. As Seo Ran finishes her complete transformation, her Dharma protector Kong Minhee asks, "Do you feel anything different, Ran Ah?" I'm not sure. The quaking heat body has subsided a bit. But it's still not completely gone yet. Though if I take one step further from here, I think the quaking heat body will completely vanish. One more step. Listening to her words, Kong Minhee understands what is needed. Gang sphere. If she climbs to ultimate pinnacle, forms the gang sphere, creates the inner core, and brings perfect balance to the body. Only then will her body truly find equilibrium again. Really, it is an absurd rate of growth. Seo Ran, the direct descendant of 2 true immortals, is quite literally a genius who surpasses everything. At this rate, isn't it only a matter of time before she reaches ultimate pinnacle? And when that happens, truly, as long as she's properly guaranteed training time by the imperial family, she will truly overcome her heavenly penalty and come to know her fate. Truly, Seo Eun-yun, the day your child reaches completion, is not far off. The day she fully awakens to her fate. On that day, her personality will be properly etched into her essence that is her fate. And at that moment, she will finally gain the treatment of a proper innate sacred vessel. Kong Minhee, watching Seo Ran who has grown so much before she knew it, can't help but feel proud. Yes, if the flow of the era had not tried to cast them out, that feeling might have continued. The Emperor of Yun Kingdom, whom Seo Ran supports and upholds in power, is foolish. Though Yun Kingdom is already divided and half-torn by warlords, he failed to grasp his position and tried to restructure the system into a centralized nation. When the warlords refused to obey in this situation, he attempted to hand over various rights of Yun Kingdom to Seo Kingdom, asking them to subdue the warlords on his behalf. In doing so, the people of Yun Kingdom, who have suffered at the hands of Seo Kingdom for over a decade, rose in rebellion. Countless warlords, unable to ignore the will of the people, also raised armies and simultaneously declared rebellion against the Yun imperial family. The royal guards collapsed in an instant, and the enraged citizens attempted to tear the emperor to pieces. In the midst of this chaos, Seo Ran, alongside Kong Minhee, rescued the emperor to whom she has already sworn loyalty to regardless of what has happened, and displayed her power before countless citizens. And that was the problem. Not only has she reached the summit of martial arts by unbinding star standards, she also attained the pinnacle of marksmanship. Her very existence stirred greed and wariness among the warlords. As a result, the emperor and Seo Ran, who originally planned to flee Jungyang City and hide the emperor in a remote region of Yun Kingdom, ended up in a situation where they are now semi-forced to remain confined within Jungyang City once again. This all unfolded within half a year after Seo Ran rose to 5 energies converging to the origin. Ran Ah. Right now, the citizens outside the imperial palace are determined to tear the emperor apart. Wouldn't it be better to just hand the emperor over to some fitting warlord, and secure your training time? Quote. Kong Minhee speaks as she looks at Seo Ran standing guard in front of the emperor's chambers. I've made a list of the warlords who at least seem likely to last a bit. Take a look and make a decision, Ran Ah. Your growth is too precious to be wasted here. Please, move on to the next realm and completely erase the side effects of your quaking heat body. Wouldn't that be better? She speaks while looking at Seo Ran earnestly. And Seo Ran smiles faintly. Honey, thank you, truly. Even after all this, you're still by my side. Quote. But there's no helping it. Since I've decided to follow the emperor, I might as well go all the way. What has that foolish emperor ever done for you? Not much, really. He did accept my request and blocked the shutdown of your newspaper a few times. Quote. Of course, that's not really a huge grace. But you want to ask why I would show such loyalty over such a small grace, right? Quote. Yeah, the reason is, it's all the same anyway. The same, yes. Seo Ran nods as she recalls that moment from over a decade ago. The old spirit holding a flower basket. The moment she saw the true nature of the Sal tree heavenly venerable. Already then, the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable said he is the ruler of this world and that the flow of the era would turn against her. Which means, no matter which faction she joins or how she shifts her position, the era will inevitably oppose her. This too is part of the flow. She understands clearly that the vast flows running through the world have been commanded by the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable to hate her. Therefore, whether she abandons the Emperor or not, the result is the same. If the result is the same anyway, then I'll choose the one with even the slightest good memory. Good memory. The fireworks I saw for the first time in Jungyang City when I was little. I heard those fireworks first started on the Emperor's orders. Since I have a happy memory of watching those fireworks, I'm just moving for the Emperor who gave me that memory. Fireworks. Kong Minhee recalls Seo Ran's 15th birthday and suddenly feels an ominous sense of foreboding. And Kong Minhee's foreboding is not wrong. The factions of the warlords have surrounded Jungyang City with countless firearms. Ran there really are no options left now. If the Emperor doesn't come out, it seems the warlords plan on bombing the entire city. They're probably trying to strike first, worried that the Seo kingdom might take the Emperor's side. The citizens are rioting out there. Of course, if they care about the will of the people, they might not actually fire, but even the threat alone feels enough to break open the palace gates. It's not too late even now. Just a moment, He-Unny. The Emperor is quietly calling. Seo Ran leaves Kong Minhee behind and enters the Emperor's room, speaking with him for some time. And when she returns, what she says leaves Kong Minhee dumbfounded. He says he'll escape with He-Unny through the secret passage, and that I should draw the warlords' attention to buy time for him to flee. Ran let's just kill that bastard. Kong Minhee is truly dumbfounded that a mere mortal emperor dares to use Seo Ran, the child of true immortals, in such a way. If I were in my main body, a human who wouldn't even deserve to lick the foot of a ghost soul that gnaws at the dead skin of my toe, dares tell Ran to be, what? Bait. Crack. Kong Minhee, seething with sincere rage, spreads ghostly energy gathered through ordinary internal energy methods and starts to head into the Emperor's chambers. But in the end, Seo Ran blocks Kong Minhee. He-Unny, please listen to the Emperor's words. If we just stay like this, the warlords will fire at least 1 or 2 shells into the city as a threat. It may be just for intimidation, but even that will kill or injure many people. You want me to escape with that trash while you become the bait? Rather, let's switch. I'll be the bait, and you take that garbage out through the secret passage. Unny. And then, looking into Seo Ran's eyes, Kong Minhee understands. Please grant me this request. That she absolutely cannot refuse that look in Seo Ran's eyes. Fine. Kong Minhee nods, and Seo Ran smiles faintly as she reads the flow. Ever since the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable declared he would oppose her, many years ago, she has been able to know her ending. I see it, the vision of countless shells and bullets tearing through her body as she dies. That is her end. Now, I'm going to die soon. Chapter 712. Spring Dream Chunmeng 3. The flow is absolute. It is something that can never be changed, and to Seo Ran, the end of that flow feels like, this evening. Seo Ran acknowledges this bitterly as she watches Kong Minhee beat the Emperor and shove him into the secret passage. Even so, at least Minhee-Unny really stayed by my side until the very end. She didn't follow the flow, as Seo Ran had predicted. Instead, she stayed by her side. Of course, it's not that the flow isn't absolute. I think something between Minhee-Unny and Mother influenced the flow. She thinks maybe her mother had the ability to interfere with the flow itself. But still, even if Kim Yeon did something, in the end, it is Kong Minhee's own will that led her to stay by Seo Ran's side and follow her through everything. Watching Kong Minhee, Seo Ran feels like she understands what Kim Yeon meant now. That for Seo Ran's sake, she would leave behind someone who would love her more than Kim Yeon herself. She can feel it too. Kong Minhee's affection, it truly runs deep and even deeper. That's why, I won't let Minhee-Unny get caught up in this. She grips in both hands the pistol Minhee gave her long ago and the pistol Kim Yeon had crafted for her, and she sits down, waiting for the evening. It's almost time for everything to end. The evening glow slowly begins to cast its light over the Imperial Palace, elongating Seo Ran's shadow. At the edge of that stretched shadow, Seo Ran sees a grotesque worm covered in black flowers all over its body appear. It is a being she knows well, the worm with an old man's face on its head. I shall give you one last chance, Ran-Ah. So, please say that you will not enter your mother's domain. If you do so, I shall manifest everything you desire in this world. Whatever future you wish, the ancient force is limitless, and with it, I can twist the world to create whatever reality you want. Ran-Ah, please, choose me. You ask me to choose you, and yet you show up in such a repulsive form. Repulsive form, Ah, I see. And while looking at the worm-like form of the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable, Seo Ran realizes something. That divine spirit didn't intentionally choose that form. It's just, I am seeing his true essence. Realizing this, she smiles faintly. You said you would give me the future I desire, right? Indeed. Then give me a future where I overcome you. I am someone with a pretty strong rebellious streak who wants to overcome everyone that stands above me and tries to dictate my life, you see. Seo Ran extends her hand as she makes that request to Sal Tree. But this time, Sal Tree does not take her hand. Looks like you don't like that. In that case, never mind. Even if I die today. Chiok. Seo Ran stands up, pistols in both hands. I want to take even a single step closer, to mother and father. Rustle. Glaring at her as she says this, the illusion of the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable scatters. Immediately after, with a strangely unburdened expression, Seo Ran uses lightness skills and ascends the palace wall. Standing atop the wall, she lets out a lion's roar. The last vassal of the current emperor, the strongest power of the Yun Kingdom, I, Seo Ran, am here. Kururum. Those who hear Seo Ran's shout all turn to look at her. Then, countless attacks begin to rain down on her. Countless bullets fly toward her, and she briefly retreats from the palace wall, then starts running toward the outer wall of Zhengyang City. Immediately after, she makes a running start to the outer wall before jumping and lightening her body. To that, I should have practiced air stepping a bit more. I focused too much on internal energy cultivation, trying to imitate mother. Standing atop the outer wall, she unleashes a lion's roar toward the warlords stationed outside. I, Seo Ran, the strongest martial artist of Yun Kingdom you all so desperately seek, am here. Stop firing on the innocent civilians. Seeing her like that, warlords from all directions begin sending out their subordinates. Numerous peak masters, and even several masters of three flowers gather at the summit, all begin scaling the outer wall at once, rushing toward her. Seeing them, Seo Ran prepares to face her end. And it is at that moment. Kwang, a massive shell comes flying toward her. At that moment, a silhouette shrouded in black ghostly energy blocks the space between her and the shell in an instant. Tukwang. Immediately after, the black silhouette swings a ghost claw extending from their hand and twists the trajectory of the shell, sending it flying elsewhere. Kugwagwang. The shell crashes into the interior of the outer wall, right inside the palace from where she had just emerged, and explodes with a roar. Seo Ran looks at the one who used the ghost claw. It's Kong Min-hee. I decently educated the emperor and got him out. Then I rushed over, Ran-Ah. No matter how I think about it, I just can't leave you alone. If someone saw you, they'd think He-Unny is my nanny, ho-ho. HMPH, whatever. You, the reason you obediently followed all the emperor's orders was because of that, wasn't it? Your fate has run out, hasn't it? At Kong Min-hee's question, Seo Ran slowly nods her head. If that bastard Sal Tree hadn't eroded you, your natural lifespan would have been much longer. What even is this? Why do you have to die at such a young age? I just don't get it. Grumbling, Kong Min-hee blows away the peak masters rushing at them with her ghost claw. For a while, the two women are wholly absorbed in fending off the subordinates of the warlords. Kong Min-hee with her ghost claw, and Seo Ran with her twin pistols. Seo Ran, you're swinging the ghost claw all wrong. Let me show you how it's done. Your mother, Kim Yeon, at the end, told you to be happy. Ran-Ah, were you happy? Who knows? But anyway, Seo Ran moves behind Kong Min-hee, grabs her arm, and swings it in her stead, teaching her how to systematically wield the ghost claw to kill the enemies. That is a martial art in and of itself. The evening glow fades, and Seo Ran, embracing Kong Min-hee from behind, dances while fending off the many peak masters under the waning sunset. Seo Ran, yes, He-Unny, just use the ghost claw the way I showed you. I just came up with it, but it should be pretty useful. Let's call it, the ghost hand claw method, maybe. Co ran. Quote. Yes. Were you happy? Quote. Quote. Co ran looks up at the sky for a moment. Now, the time of her death is near. The warlords, realizing that not even peak masters can leave a single scratch on her, let alone capture her, are now preparing to fire all their cannons at once. What even is happiness, really? Quote. Well, they say it's doing what you want to do, eating what you want to eat, seeing the people you want to see. Those small things gather together to become happiness. Quote. There are people I want to see. Who? My mother and father. At Co Ran's words, Kong Minhee pauses for a moment, seemingly in thought, then slowly raises her arm. She should be able to withstand this much. After all, she's reached 5 energies converging to the origin, and she is the child of Co Eun-yun and Kim Yeon. At least this much, she will be able to endure. Her fingertip points beyond the outer wall, toward the Sword Peak Mountain where Co Ran once lived long ago. Quote. Do you know who the mountain spirit of Sword Peak Mountain is? Who is it? Co Eun-yun. Quote. Pardon, Co Eun-yun was the mountain spirit of Sword Peak Mountain. And your mother, Kim Yeon, was a powerful divine spirit comparable to him. You are the child of divine spirits, Co Ran. Wo Wang, is it because her words alone hold a certain level of wisdom? Co Ran stands frozen on the spot, her body trembling with difficulty for a moment. However, more than the hardship, Co Ran seems to feel a sense of lightness. With just that one sentence, countless questions unravel. She always thought they were extraordinary beings, but to think they were divine spirits. Quote. Why didn't you tell me that until now? Until now, your personality was unstable. If I said it recklessly, there was a risk of it collapsing entirely. Quote. I see. Well, it's all my fault, then. Co Ran lowers her head for a moment, then mutters while looking at Sword Peak Mountain from the outer wall of Jungyang City. Quote. If Sword Peak Mountain truly was my father's mountain and that's why I always felt so at peace there, if I die, please bury my bones in my father's embrace. Ho ho, air stepping, I should have at least learned it properly. The sun is setting, darkness slowly blankets all of Jungyang City, and in that darkness, Co Ran looks up at the peak of Sword Peak Mountain. At that moment, Kong Minhee snaps her fingers. TTAK. Then, one of Kong Minhee's strands of hair lengthens and becomes a blue thread stretching from the outer wall all the way to the summit of Sword Peak Mountain. This is, quote. It's something similar to what your mother did. Kong Minhee turns her gaze away from Co Ran, who is preparing for her end. She simply cannot bring herself to look directly at her. Goo. Simultaneously, she draws out her innate authority, even at the cost of her life and a fatal wound to her main body. Bridal creation. Through her authority that creates laws, a law is added to the strand of hair stretching to the summit of Sword Peak Mountain. As long as Co Ran does not give up, the thread shall never break. Keying. She neither possesses entering heavens beyond the path like Kim Yeon, nor holds any inherited legacy of her predecessors, so she cannot wield as powerful an authority as Kim Yeon. Even at the cost of consuming her incarnation, this limited power is all she can reach. But she is satisfied. I always said I would protect, but I never managed to protect anyone. Because I am weak, I couldn't even protect the person I liked, and I couldn't save those who liked me. So, Wu Wang. Kong Minhee plucks another strand of hair and mutters as she imbues it with another law. At least you, the most precious result of the people I love. I will protect you no matter what. Go, Co Ran. In her eyes, every moment with Co Ran flashes by. When Co Ran was still in Kim Yeon's womb. When she was just born. When Co Ran gradually grew up, became her friend, and spent time together. When she witnessed Co Ran's pain from up close. Following her, all the way to this moment. Short from the eyes of a transcendent being, but unbearably long from a mortal's perspective. Kong Minhee, determined to protect that time at all costs, grinds down her own being and cries out. As long as I am using my authority, you will never die, so go. Quote. Yes, honey. Co Ran looks at Kong Minhee for a moment, then with a bright smile, steps onto the strand of Kong Minhee's blue hair, making her way to Sword Peak Mountain. A black shadow-like world. There, a worm made of black flowers clicks its tongue while gazing toward somewhere. Right, I realized it from the moment she perceived my essence despite its concealment. So it was like that after all. In the worm's eyes, a certain space of the unruly realm appears. There, Seo Ran is shown walking toward Sword Peak Mountain by stepping on a thin thread. However, the worm sees something more. It is the very paper flowers beginning to bloom inside Seo Ran's chest. Dangerous. She must be intercepted. At the words carrying the will of the worm, the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable, countless warlords begin to simultaneously aim their guns and cannons at Seo Ran. At last, the sky over Zhengyang City has become night. The time when she is originally supposed to die is now here, and the fireworks marking her final moment begins. Chapter 713. Spring Dream Chunmeng 4. 2222. Countless bullets and shells, imbued with the force of explosion, pour down solely to kill Seo Ran. The thin strand of hair. Atop the blue thread, Seo Ran runs while holding pistols. The Yun-style fighting method she learned from Seo Un-Yun has evolved through her modifications into the Yun-style shooting method. Unlike the original method that unfolded through the body, this technique channels internal energy into firearms and shoots it out. Her unique martial art that is not quite a martial art begins to unfold with full power. Yun-style shooting method. Twin, Fang, Ghost Fang, Heat Fang. The pistols in both her hands fire simultaneously, colliding with the massive shells. The bullets infused with ghostly energy strike the shells and detonate them on contact, while the bullets imbued with heat melt the warheads of the shells entirely. The essence of Qi is explosion. Therefore, the gun, which fires by triggering explosions, might actually be the most optimized weapon for wielding Qi. Yun-style shooting method. True Fang Zhenya. Quang, Quang Quang. From Seo Ran's pistol erupts the roar of artillery fire, shooting down every shell that might have threatened the civilians below if they had fallen. How did you do that, mother? Seo Ran recalls Kim Yian's full blossom. The endless affection contained within that full blossom. She remembers that feeling vividly and begins to squeeze out every bit of power in her entire body to reach it. And the more she does, the more shells fly toward her. Yun-style shooting method. Dual circle True Fang Yuan Zhenya. Wu Wang. From Seo Ran's hands, a faint explosion seems to occur. At the same time, two circular ripples spread out from both her hands, and every bullet she fires carries those ripples. Tat, to dat, but in the end, a pistol is a pistol. Am I out of bullets? Seo Ran realizes she's used up all her rounds and lets out a bitter smile. Well, it doesn't matter. Wu Wang, she points the empty muzzle of her gun at the incoming shells and smiles. I can squeeze out more, so this is actually better. Yun-style shooting method. Taiji True Fang Taiji Zhenya. Dual circle True Fang Yuan Zhenya. Link technique. Polar resonance True Fang Yi Ji Gong Ming Zhenya. Do. As if Taiji settles directly into the pistols in Seo Ran's hands, the very force of explosion itself begins to burst forth from her guns. Moreover, those explosions resonate with each other, growing larger and larger. Watching Seo Ran like that, Kong Minhee reveals a faint expression of worry. She's firing explosions because she's out of bullets. But doing that will burn through her internal energy like mad, and she'll even have to draw on her innate true energy. She is worried about one thing. Quaking heat body. Though it has greatly subsided after reaching 5 energies converging to the origin and undergoing complete transformation, the quaking heat body has not completely disappeared. And is it that her worry proves right? Freeze. At last, Seo Ran, who had been running without pause atop the thin thread, comes to a halt. Kong Minhee's eyes glint with dread. Seo Ran feels cold sweat trickling down her body. It hurts. It is painful. Is it because she's been recklessly unleashing both her internal energy and innate true energy because it's her last day? Her heavenly penalty begins to flare up. The quaking heat body contracts her muscles and causes her to lose her sense of balance. And no, to keep her body from falling as she loses balance, she fires an explosion in the direction she is leaning. Quang, the gun barrel overheats, and she staggers. Hyok. Seo Ran, drenched in cold sweat as if in a rain, looks toward the still halfway distant path to Sword Peak Mountain. It's too far. Can I even make it? To make matters worse, she's starting to lose her sense of balance, and it feels like she'll fall at any moment. Moreover, this tightrope itself is made by crazily extending and hardening a single strand of Kong Minhee's hair. It's only natural that it's hard to maintain balance. Hyo. On top of that, the wind begins to blow, violently shaking the rope, and Seo Ran clenches her teeth amidst the fear of falling. A while later, shiver. Despite trembling all over, Seo Ran begins to move forward. Her body is in pain, her internal energy is depleted, and she is now even drawing from her innate true energy, but she doesn't care. Shells and bullets occasionally fly toward her, but she doesn't care about those either. At first, it is agonizing. She is tormented by the question of why she has to endure this and the tension of standing atop this tightrope. But at some point, she suddenly has a thought. Either way, even if I scream from the pain, there's nothing I can do. So then, what should she do? Accept it. She accepts her heavenly penalty, the quaking heat body. And as she accepts the pain of the quaking heat body, something surfaces in her mind. It is a memory from her childhood. Ah, right, I definitely wanted to become an acrobat. She hated martial arts. To her, it felt like just another method of fate forcing her life in a single direction. Because of that, she wanted to do something unrelated to martial arts. The acrobat of the acting troupe she had watched with her family as a child looked so beautiful in the eyes of her young self. It wasn't the acrobat's sense of balance that was beautiful. It was the act of bringing joy to someone else. That looked beautiful. Mother's full blossom, yes. It made me warm. Then, what is what I am trying to reach giving to others? Step, step. Seo Ran begins to walk forward, step by step. Her footwork is no longer that of a martial artist. Instead, it is the footwork of an acrobat, something she had occasionally practiced as a hobby, something she remembered from watching those performers. Elegant in some ways, precarious in others. Just like that, she becomes an acrobat walking the tightrope toward Sword Peak Mountain. I want to bring joy. Only then does she remember. The memory of herself, amazed and delighted as she watched the acrobat. The happiness she felt watching fireworks for the first time. I never knew the reason why I was living. With every step she takes, she feels something awakening within her. Everyone always hoped I would overcome my fate. But, I thought of that very hope as fate itself, feeling burdened by it, and wanted to escape from it. Seo Eun-yun and Kim Yeon thought that Seo Ran overcoming and escaping her heavenly penalty, the quaking heat body, would help realize her fate and hence made her learn martial arts. However, even that very attempt by Seo Eun-yun and Kim Yeon became a form of fate for her. That is why she hated learning martial arts. Now that I think about it, maybe what I really wanted to learn was not how to kill, but how to laugh together with others. Hyo. Suddenly, as she comes to her senses, she realizes that she has climbed to quite a height. Despite standing on the tightrope that she seemed ready to fall from at any moment, she does not fall. Even though she is in the midst of a quaking heat body seizure and has lost her sense of balance, she remains utterly still, as if she has gained perfect equilibrium. She feels it with each step she takes. Her heart gradually empties. Death is approaching. Was my fate the fate of overcoming fate? Seo Ran half opens her eyes and moves forward. Strangely, it feels as though she is walking on level ground. Honestly, I don't know. Fate, martial arts, I never cared about any of it. Recalling the first time she ever saw fireworks, she remembers once more. That happiness, the desire to enjoy that moment again with her parents surfaces in her mind. And at that moment, when all thoughts other than that one become empty. Hyung, from behind her, a cannon shell flies in, attempting to shoot her down. Click. Now even her bullets are all gone, and both her innate true energy and internal energy are nearly depleted. And yet, for some reason, she points her gun toward the shell. Then immediately after, she pulls the trigger. At the same time, tong, a powerful gunshot rings out from the muzzle, and she suddenly feels as though the world around her brightens. Kong Min-hee widens her eyes, realizing what Seo Ran has done. Despite their anxiety, the countless civilians in Jungyang City gasp in awe at the beauty. Countless people cry out in admiration at the sight. It is a firework display, like an explosion of firecrackers. Kwang, kwang, kwang. Explosions echo as countless shells are fired toward Seo Ran. Each time, she simply pulls the trigger with a face full of nostalgia. And, every time she pulls the trigger, all the shells flying toward her transform into firecrackers, filling the sky with the dazzling light of fireworks. Pong, Pbobong, she faintly recalls something her parents once said. The era of gunpowder, that your mother and I wove together. Entering, heavens, beyond the path. As her innate true energy drains, Seo Ran continues to speak with a faint smile. Without even realizing that what she is unleashing is something entirely different from entering heavens beyond the path, she creates countless fireworks as she endlessly ascends toward Sword Peak Mountain. The era of fireworks. The shadow world. There, the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable looks at Seo Ran as if it's ridiculous. I see. When Kim Yeon unfolded manifestation, she resonated her own cultivation with his power. So that's when she first entered the door. Outer wall of Jungyang City. There, Kang Min-hee watches Seo Ran transform bullets fired from a gun into fireworks, and lets out a laugh of disbelief. Quote. So that's an innate sacred vessel, huh? A power that twists the will of the world through sheer will alone, without cultivating any immortal cultivation system. A power that some call the primordial origin immortal cultivation system. That's right, what Seo Ran is unfolding is an immortal art. Immortal arts. As the era of fireworks marks Seo Ran's final steps, at last, she reaches the summit of Sword Peak Mountain, walking the thin thread without losing her balance in the slightest. I'm back. The grand and majestic spiritual energy of Sword Peak Mountain, felt again after so long, embraces her. Seo Ran feels as though she is falling asleep in the arms of her father, Seo Eun-yun, and slowly closes her eyes. Thanks to the traces of the immortal art she unleashed, countless flames of the fireworks fill the sky. Quote. So many things have happened. And in all those many things, she has leaned much. Seo Ran smiles as she reflects on the twisted, tangled path that her life had been. Even so, I think I understand now. What some call their fate, and others call the reason they were born. Seo Ran finally thinks she understands it. A fate that overcomes fate. What does it mean to overcome fate? It's simple. Fate cannot be overcome, just as Seo Ran ultimately failed to fully break free from her heavenly penalty. Fate is not something to overcome, but perhaps something to be accepted. Yes, accepting fate, but still dreaming of a better tomorrow. A fate that overcomes fate may mean, in the end, the fate of accepting one's fate yet endlessly struggling toward the dream one wishes for within it. Since life is but a fleeting spring dream, Yi Chong Chun Meng, perhaps it is enough to simply accept its fleeting nature and pursue the beauty within. Just as the being known as Seo Ran, even though she resented all the fates forced upon, accepted them in the end, and now closes her eyes while walking the tightrope and watching the fireworks that she had always dreamed of. Pasasasasa. As Seo Ran closes her eyes, an overwhelming number of paper flowers begin to appear from within her. Those paper flowers are mixed with Seo Ran's soul. Only after death does her soul come to understand who she is, why she has come to live such a fate. All the causality seems to be laid bare before her eyes. It was a difficult life. But without a doubt, it was a fulfilling one. Seo Ran's soul regains the memories of her past life before she was born as Seo Ran, and scatters boundless blessings upon all who are watching this world. Flash. All who witness the light of that blessing flinch in surprise. In particular, the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable reacts with visible shock, and outside the unruly realm, Seo Eun-yun and White-Winged Heavenly Pegasus who have been watching simultaneously let out a sigh. And Kang Min-hee, who loved the existence precious to Seo Eun-yun, sheds a single stream of tears. Mother, father. Seo Ran's soul calls out a little shyly to Seo Eun-yun and Kim Yeon, and Seo Eun-yun, upon hearing that voice, sheds a single tear. Yes, our child. Seo Ran's past life. Her name in that past life was Su-in and Hong Yeon. She was the power of connections formed from the split soul of the vast cold heavenly king. And the very spirit that united into one during the Seo Weol battle. Thank you, for coming to us as our child. The power of connections that merged into one was summoned again through the intermingling of myself and Kim Yeon, taking the form of fate. That is precisely the true nature of my child, whom I named Seo Ran. In the midst of gratitude and regret toward Su-in and Hong Yeon, I watch the final moments of my child. At the same time, through the paper flowers blooming from Seo Ran's body, I transmit to Kang Min-hee the true form of the Western Heaven flower field, as observed from beyond its boundary. Coo-goo-goo-goo. Outside the Nether crossing ship. There, a voice resounds from the countless petals covering the surroundings of the Nether treading ship. It is a meaningless act. That one has already been too deeply eroded by the Western Heaven flower field. Therefore, it is nearly impossible to use power from within, and likewise, dismantling it is impossible. It is the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable. I smile, recalling the long and weary battle I fought against the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable. True, if it was just Kang Min-hee, perhaps that would be so. I smile as I watch her reach out toward the paper flowers blooming within the unruly realm. But, can you not feel it, Sal Tree? .. And at last, after a long and longer time, Kang Min-hee, who has brilliantly learned the meaning of parting, begins to grow. Kugooging. Centered around Kang Min-hee, the principles of the unruly realm begin to twist. In the sorrow of Seo Ran's completed life coming to an end, and the grief of that farewell, she yearns for enlightenment. And at last, she begins to advance from a true lord into a new existence. Chapter 714. Lapis Lazuli Flower Heavenly King Lu Li Hua Tian Wang. At first, it was simple curiosity toward the life born from only the most precious parts of Xiao Unyun and Kim Yian, two beings she treasures deeply, coming together to form the most precious existence. Then, when that life was conceived within Kim Yian's womb, when it gained a body and a beating heart, the curiosity only grew stronger. Because Xiao Unyun and Kim Yian are both people whom Kang Minhee loves dearly. Perhaps the child inherited only the most lovable traits of both. That's what she thought. And on the day the child was born, Kang Minhee, seeing the child's eyes for the first time, suddenly thought, I want to be with this child, truly without any barriers. To put it simply, it was the feeling of wanting to get close. And as she watched the child grow, approaching the child with things like Zhengyang 5 flowers and binding herself to the child, she came to realize that the feelings she has for this child aren't just about wanting to be close. I see. She has come to love this child. There are elements of love that cannot be defined solely by the concept of sexual affection. And the love Kang Minhee feels toward the child is clearly a kind of love that cannot be judged by such elements. She wants to be together. She wants to see what the future holds. She wants this child to be happy. Carrying all those countless hopes, Kang Minhee came to love the child. Yes, perhaps, Kang Minhee began to think of this child as her own. And maybe that is why, when she heard Kim Yian was going to abandon her body in return, she became so angry. Whatever the case may be, she loves the child. The child of Xiao Unyun, bearing the name of his old friend, Xiao Ran. Sometimes like a mother, sometimes like a friend, sometimes like an adorable junior. She loved her that way. And when she first learned that Xiao Ran has resolved herself to death. At first, she didn't know how to face it. But that confusion didn't last long. The moment she saw Xiao Ran's eyes, she understood. She knew what she must do for her. Both Kim Yian and Xiao Unyun are people Kang Minhee likes. So when she learned that the two like each other, she chose to step aside. They are both people dear to her, and she didn't want anyone to be hurt because of her. But she was never able to offer them her wholehearted congratulations at their wedding. She was never able to truly wish for their happiness. And so, to the being who resembles only the most lovable parts of the two people she loves, she wanted to offer all the happiness she wasn't able to give them. Kang Minhee wished for Xiao Ran to be happy. And, watching Xiao Ran awaken her immortal art and close her eyes, she came to fully understand what sorrow is. Sorrow is a prison bar. A wall. Yet at the same time, a wall also becomes a support for those who have climbed it. As she parts with Xiao Ran, she accepts the sorrow completely, and comes to understand that a being with a heart can also grow through sorrow. The moment she fully realizes this, she becomes aware of a waterfall of power overflowing within her chest. It is the sorrow of the underworld. A deep and even deeper sorrow. Even the underworld herself has overcome sorrow. But the despair and grief brought by the gap between her and the future king are so immense that even that is not enough. The underworld's heart is filled with sorrow vast enough to overturn the world. And Kang Minhee realizes that through her enlightenment, she has finally reached the minimum standard to properly receive and use this sorrow. Ku-gu-gu-gu-gu-gu. A sorrow of incomprehensible magnitude bursts forth through Kang Minhee. And all that sorrow transforms into authority through her power. Xiao Unyun's cultivation system that bloomed from Xiao Ran. Using that system as a medium, information about the Western Heaven flower field, sent by Xiao Unyun's group from the outside, flows into her. And the moment she realizes that bridal creation, using the overflowing sorrow as a medium, Kang Minhee begins to create thousands of laws, launching a counter-erosion on the Western Heaven flower field. She senses the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable being flustered, but it is useless. Ku-gu-gu-gu-ging. With the system completely broken through, and the authority being of a similar structure, it is possible to erode it from this side. Moreover, the tool used for the erosion is none other than the sorrow of the underworld. The Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable tries to pull back the mantra of the Western Heaven flower field in panic, but perhaps the sorrow emitted by Kang Minhee has driven the mantra insane as it no longer recognizes the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable or Kang Minhee. Now, the Western Heaven flower field is mine. Ku-gu-gu-gu-gu-gu. Having seized control of the anti-governing immortal technique, the Western Heaven flower field, she realizes she is ascending into a new being along with the power of her mantra. At the final moment, the fireworks Xiao Ran showed her flash before her eyes. Kururum. As the absolute of sorrow becomes completely hers, she finally divined to sense the power of her origin essence and rises to her feet. Kugugugugugu. Her mind, empowered by the absolute, transcends countless spacetime, and the memories of those countless versions of herself from all those spacetime merge with her own. She comes to know of Seo Unyun's greatest secrets. I see, Seo Unyun. You. Understanding Seo Unyun's secrets, she at last engraves her name as a completely reborn being upon the world. Lapis lazuli flower heavenly king Lu Li Wa Tian Wang Kong Minhee. Sua. Kong Minhee watches Seo Ran's fate and soul fade away into some pale pink space in the far distance. Perhaps because it realized it is the power of the vast cold heavenly lord, it is heading into a space that only the vast cold heavenly lord can enter. It seems neither Seo Unyun nor Kim Yeon can enter that space. Even they can only look from afar. Kong Minhee slowly walks between the two and gently caresses Seo Ran's aura. Someday, if there is a cause and connection, let's meet again. At Kong Minhee's words, Seo Ran's fate hums and resonates, deciding on a certain emotion. And at that single expression of emotion, Kong Minhee smiles brightly. Because that emotion is anticipation. Someday, we'll meet again, won't we, Ran Ah? Kim Yeon gently strokes Seo Ran and asks with tender affection, and from Seo Ran's soul, the emotion of affirmation appears. Kim Yeon's face brightens at that answer. Lastly, Seo Unyun places his hand upon Seo Ran's fate soul. I'm sorry for naming you Seo Ran. If you carry the memories of Su In and Hong Yeon, that name must not be pleasant. At his apology, filled with remorse, Seo Ran's fate soul transforms. It is the form of Seo Ran, made of a faint, soft light. Fully manifesting in the appearance she had when she lived as a human, she slowly strokes Seo Unyun's cheek. That gesture seems to say, it's okay. Watching this, Seo Unyun sheds a single tear. Next time too, will you be our child? Wu Wang. Seo Ran's fate soul turns into a single strand of light and briefly touches Seo Unyun's forehead. It is as if Seo Ran is embracing Seo Unyun. Yeah, thank you. And as if that single embrace has given him the answer he wished for, Seo Unyun smiles as he watches Seo Ran, In and Yeon, slowly get drawn into the alternate space of vast cold. Seo Unyun, Kim Yeon, and Kong Minhee all stand still for a while, watching the lingering trace of that space. And then, they begin moving again. Because there is still work left to be done. You've devoured Western Heaven, Kong Minhee. That's right. Then can you locate the coordinates of Sal Tree? As much as needed. Kugugugugu. Kong Minhee traces the history of the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable remaining within the Western Heaven flower field and accurately pinpoints the coordinates of the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable in the outer sea. I'm connecting it. Authority, bridal creation, clang. As Kong Minhee extends her hand, thousands of chains created from her stretch forth into the depths of the chaotic sea. At the ends of those chains are the coordinates of the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable that Kong Minhee just fixed. I've captured Sal Tree. Kong Minhee speaks, perceiving the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable being caught in her bridle. Seo Unyun nods at her words. Song Jin, how long until the scheduled time? It is around half a day. It seems that while Kong Minhee and Seo Ran were trapped, time had flowed a bit differently, as the nether treading ship is already nearing the boundary of Kakravada. Kong Minhee, can you hold on for long? Of course. Kong Minhee smiles as she begins converting the immeasurable sorrow pouring out from the underworld into authority. I can hold him for 1,000 years. Just say the word, Kugugugugu. And a short while later, the nether treading ship arrives at a strange space. If the previous outer sea was a sea of chaos, then the place they reach this time is a world of nothingness. A faintly glowing white world with literally nothing in it. And there, welcome, Seo Unyun. And, Red Pearl Cycling Heavenly King. Lapis Lazuli Flower Heavenly King. They finally meet the incarnation of the Heavenly Venerable of Time, who has been waiting for them. I'd like to share a conversation, but it seems you are a bit busy. That's right. Then let us exchange greetings a little later. They quickly exchange wills, then gaze beyond the chains where the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable is caught. Oh hi Seo. Immediately after, Oh hi Seo's power and the wheel simultaneously activate. Authority, truth manipulation, authority, history rewrite, clang. At that very instant, the ends of the chains instantly shift positions, and the locations of Kong Minhee and Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable switch. The Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable appears within the arena, and Jaeon Myonghoon thrusts his lightning spear and activates his authority. Authority, causality induction, Quirurururung. The authority that creates and gifts the desired reality in proportion to what they suffered activates. And the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable screams. Stab. Lightning-tipped spear. Kwarurum. Jaeon Myong-hoon's lightning-tipped spear, carrying the power of causality induction, impales the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable as if pinning him to the spot. Suua. Immediately after, Kong Minhee returns to her position by utilizing the power of bridal creation. Finally, we meet face to face again. Seo Eun-yun lets out a sigh as if he's disturbed and extends his hand toward the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable. When they were sailing from the Nether Crossing ship, Sal Tree eroded them from a distance through the mantra of the Western Heaven Flower Field and fired off prophecies from a distance that were too tricky to respond to, making direct engagement nearly impossible. But now, with Kong Minhee having reverse eroded the Western Heaven Flower Field, and using it as the coordinate, they have dragged the Sal Tree here. If he is right in front of me, I can deal fatal blows as much as I want. Recalling this fact, Seo Eun-yun surrounds the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable. Thus, the incarnation of the Heavenly Venerable of Time. The Red Pearl Cycling Heavenly King. The Lapis Lazuli Flower Heavenly King. The four enders below them. Seo Eun-yun wielding a supreme deity-level immortal treasure, and white-winged Heavenly Pegasus. Face off against the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable. The Heavenly Venerable battle begins. 715. Kugugugugu. The Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable suddenly swells up his body, becoming a flower field worm more massive than all our true bodies combined, and whips at us with his tail as if to create distance. Ridiculous. However, Yun Sok Hung Nim grabs the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable's tail, and the Heavenly Venerable of Time speaks. Stall for time. I shall tell you the way to seal that one. At those words, Yun Sok also inflates his size and begins to charge at the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable's true body. Is it really possible to seal the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable? Yes. If it is from this position where I now stand, it is certainly possible to seal him. I look around this strange world of nothingness called the domain of Kakravata and ask, what exactly is here? Look carefully, spread your consciousness wide. Following the words of time, I spread my consciousness as far as I can and survey the surroundings. And I understand. This is, this domain of nothingness, compared to the chaos of the outer sea, forms a very clean boundary, drawing a peculiar curvature. If such a domain of nothingness blocks off the entire outer sea and Mount Sumeru like this, T's shape is, almost like an eggshell. And among those eggshell-like forms, I see something strange. The place where the Heavenly Venerable of Time stands. For some reason, the form of nothingness there isn't as smooth as in other places. It's as if it was broken and then patched up again. I can't help but feel baffled. What is this? Copyright in an unimaginably ancient era. Someone pierced through the boundary of Kakravata and created a path to the outside without going through a place like the audience chamber. Say, my eyes widen at the unbelievable claim. Break this place. Is that even possible? It just looks like endless nothingness. This strange boundary of nothingness. This emptiness called the boundary of Kakravata is a realm that exudes a strange power of absolute. Like the true immortal realm where the three planes coexist, it is a mysterious purity where the three absolutes are all felt. Putting aside breaking it, I can't even fathom how one would pierce through it. And yet, there exists a being who actually did. But now is not the time to ponder over the phenomenon. What must I do? This is the boundary of the world. A wall where one can cross over into worlds other than Mount Sumeru. And, in a way, this place could be called the wound on that wall. What you must do is, patch up that wound with the clay called the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable. So I just need to throw the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable into this nothingness. Yes, more precisely, throw him into this void and fuse his Gandhara with it. How do I do that? Throw him into this place, and with your single strike, cleave Sal Tree. If it's a strike of martial pinnacle, it will be enough to fuse Sal Tree's Gandhara with the nothingness of this place. I quickly send a hard message to my companions explaining the situation, then shout. Come, Sal Tree. I provoke Sal Tree to lure him toward me. Agitated by my provocation, Sal Tree comes flying at me in a frenzy and screams. Ah, Kugwagwang. The Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable crashes into me with a body slam. TWHY. And then, the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable's face meets mine. Within his pupils, I feel an endless emptiness. Why have you still not awakened to your fate? Why do you still not know your fate? I receive Sal Tree's strike and meet his gaze. In Sal Tree's eyes, I am still nothing but the unchanged Seo Eun-yun who has not grown. Why have I still not awakened to my fate? Through Indra's net, I did gain some sense of what my fate is. But even now, I still do not truly feel why that fate is mine. Even if your fate and authority are not currently clinging to you, that fate is meant to guide you, so it should be impossible not to awaken. Due to the heaven-bestowed nature you were born with, you shouldn't be able to endure not following that fate. How is it possible that you've reached true immortality, gained strength at the level of a governing immortal, and yet still not awakened to your fate? Why? The reason I haven't awakened to my fate. I respond simply, +1 don't know either. Shuckwick. I shake off Sal tree and swing the impermanence sword in crisscrossing slashes. Jayok. The sea of chaos splits into a cross, and the Sal tree heavenly venerable is flung away. At the same time, the flowers that form his body begin to scatter. The scattered flowers each transform into black butterflies and spread across the entire world. But maybe, if the beginning, development, twist, and conclusion of fate means losing someone precious. Kurururum. Lightning tip. The lightning bursting out from Jaeon Myung-hoon's body wraps around the world of chaos, then shifts into the shape of a net, extending Indra's net across this world. Immediately after, the circle of lawlessness behind Kong Min-hee turns blue, and thousands of ring-like structures appear, overlaying the net. Each and every one is a law that governs the principles of the world. Through Kong Min-hee, the laws of Indra's net revealed by Jaeon Myung-hoon begin to be restructured. The Sal tree heavenly venerable, who tries to escape beyond the chaos by becoming a swarm of butterflies, becomes trapped within the barrier formed by Jaeon Myung-hoon and Kong Min-hee. Kuring, Kurururum. I declare in the name of the Red Pearl Cycling Heavenly King. Red light dyes the space around Jaeon Myung-hoon. The pain you gave to us shall now return to you as reality. Jaeon Myung-hoon's authority overturns the principles of the world and begins to impose the causality of annihilation upon the Sal tree heavenly venerable's existence. I declare in the name of the Lapis Lazuli Flower Heavenly King. Kong Min-hee's authority alters the laws within the net, dyeing the area around her in blue. In an instant, the world inside the barrier is split into a red and blue taiji, driving the scattered butterflies of Sal tree toward the center of the taiji. How strange. Eventually, giving up on escaping, the Sal tree heavenly venerable's Gandhara gathers and compresses. Kugugugugik. The countless butterflies transform back into flowers, and the Sal tree heavenly venerable transforms into a humanoid figure covered entirely in flowers. Plus, why is it? I took someone precious from the distinguished ones. I separated them from you. And yet, why do none of you resent me? He looks around at us, asking as if genuinely curious. Just as he says, everyone present remains composed, with firm yet calm eyes. Jaeon Myung-hoon, Oh Yun-sok, Kong Min-hee. Even Kim Yeon and I as well. We do not hate you. Because of you, Seo Ran became unhappy. Because of your prophecy and authority, we were separated from our child. But even so, I rise toward the upper boundary of Kakravata and gaze up at Sal tree, now trapped in the blue-red world. Plus in the end, was it not you who designated Ran to us? The Sal tree heavenly venerable is the divinity of birth. And, thinking back to when Ran was first conceived, and white-winged heavenly Pegasus descended back then using that power as a coordinate. Smile. The Sal tree heavenly venerable smiles. Strictly speaking, it was a transaction between Vast Cold Split Soul and me. Vast Cold Split Soul whispered to me first. It asked me to let it be reborn near Vast Cold's successor and Seo Un-yun, the one who gave it grace. In return, I gained the authority to interfere in the fate of Vast Cold's split soul, Seo Ran. Indeed, it seemed that Seo Ran coming to us was not merely due to Sal tree's power, but also due to the innate will of Su In and Hong Yi themselves. That is why the Sal tree heavenly venerable was able to guide Seo Ran each time she sought an answer from fate while avoiding my gaze entirely. She herself was the medium that called the Sal tree heavenly venerable. He laughs as if admitting defeat. Truly fitting for one who sees the origin essence of acceptance at fate's end. Though life may have been swayed by me, it seems I have overlooked that the form of death, at the very least, is something they can decide by their own will. We silently look at him. He, too, gradually smiles as he looks at us. Perhaps the reason the distinguished ones do not resent me, is because Seo Ran's acceptance at fate's end left something behind for you. Just what did you see in her death, that makes the distinguished ones not resent me? Why do you not suffer? What did we see? Huh? We all smile gently, as one. A person's life is. Through her final immortal art, Seo Ran showed us much. Through that child's fireworks, we all came to understand. Even if one is enveloped by fate and cannot make everything go their own way, The act of dreaming and living within it is our own responsibility. That is what she taught us. The unruly realm was a play made solely for Seo Ran. Because that child's fate was a fate that overcomes fate, we wished to create for her a definitive target point she must surpass with her own hands. But, watching the child, we instead came to understand. She sought to overcome the flow we created with our own hands. And, only after seeing Kim Yeon's sincere heart, and being supported by Kang Min-hee's unwavering persistence, did she finally properly see her path. And that path was one none of us could have predicted. Fate is chosen by one's own hands. Even if that fate does not belong to oneself, as long as the heart is strong, even if one collapses from exhaustion, choosing by one's own hands is what life is. We wanted Seo Ran to live. We wanted her to be happy. But Seo Ran chose to abandon all those paths, and instead chose to reach the domain Kim Yeon showed her. We tried to determine our child's life with our own hands and bring her happiness. But she rejected it all and chose, by her own will, what she will overcome. Fate does not need to be decided by another. One can stay by someone's side, cheering them on and supporting the fate they choose. But there is no need to determine it for them. That is what that child taught us. Hearing our answer, the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable nods and bursts into hearty laughter. Indeed, S0 that's how it was. You all have never, not even once, been apart from her. Kang Min-hee speaks. Not only I, but even those who abandoned their physical bodies and continued to watch over Seo Ran like Seo Eun-yeon, Kim Yeon, and all of us. Our hearts have always supported Seo Ran together. If the beginning, development, twist, and conclusion of fate means losing someone precious, then we have never once left that child's side, and always supported her heart. That is why your intention never came through. So, we don't resent you. You couldn't push through any of your intentions onto us. Even though you distorted her life, that final moment, she chose it on her own. Kugugugugugu. Jaeon Myung-hoon, Kang Min-hee, Oh Yun-sok, Kim Yeon, Oh Hai Seo. My immortal treasures and Song Jin. And one, alongside the heavenly venerable of time Cheon-woon, begin to press down on Sal Tree with all our strength. That is why, even if we defeat you now, we will not do so with hatred against you who passed on to us such a precious connection. Because that, more than anything, is the will Seo Ran left us. Even if you try to force upon us some development of fate, the one who chooses it, us. The will to choose, with one's own hand, a life in which one becomes happy within fate. That is the will Seo Ran left behind for us. That is why, we will not follow the development of pain as foretold by the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable's prophecy. Ha ha ha, the greatest revenge, indeed. The Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable is without a doubt the enemy who drove our child into a miserable life. Yet, seeing what Seo Ran showed us in her final moment, we all came to understand. Even if she was born to live a miserable life, even if she was made to live a life like a play through our hands, the one who rejected all of it, who accepted our hearts and chose her own fate, was Seo Ran herself. Therefore, as the one who even gave her the opportunity, we will not hate Sal Tree. We all simultaneously raise our weapons toward the smiling Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable, and the smile vanishes from his face. Plus in that case, I will not be able to defeat you. It seems the split soul left behind by vast cold was greater than I expected. Very well, the distinguished ones are all fully qualified to subjugate this Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable. Now, come hunt me. After listening to our words until the end, he looks around at us, completely exposing himself without defense. And seeing that, the Heavenly Venerable of Time widens his eyes. Sal Tree, Guan Myung, not, I, as the first immortal beast king, hereby connect cause and effect. Kugugugugu. The body of the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable begins to scatter. His body, which until now has been covered in annihilation flowers, turns entirely white and transforms into a swarm of butterflies imbued with the light of all of the heavens, natural colors, beginning to scatter again. Just as the eastern Sal Tree, Guan Myung, has opened his eyes, so too shall the southern Sal Tree, Cheon-woon. The western Zero King shall awaken as well, Suat. All of us unleash a full-scale attack on the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable. Something feels off. At this very moment, the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable has connected with something. Shiver. Mount Sumeru, 33 Heaven. Beyond the head realm, at the edge of the inverted cone, the audience chamber. There, a certain gaze seems to descend upon this place. And the moment that gaze touches Sal Tree, P-bong-bong-bonked, From Sal Tree's body, an immense repulsive force erupts, and the swarm of butterflies begins to break through our barrier and fly off into some distant unknown. Strangely, the butterflies are completely undetectable, as if they don't exist at all. Ancient force. That is the first form of ancient force. Qian Woon, dodging the butterflies approaching him, cries out with an urgent expression. The very first Zero King, that bastard Sal Tree, is offering up all his power to send ancient force containing the future king's enlightenment into Mount Sumeru. If that reaches any of the beings in Mount Sumeru whose names contain heaven, fate, or black, they will all become just like Sal Tree is now. Are you telling us to intercept them? We cannot let a single one get through. Shoot them all down. Immortal art, sunlight hunting. Pong, Pibwunning, Pibongbongbong. I fire the immortal art of sun shooting, but the butterflies made from Sal Tree's body simply pass through the arrows. The attacks don't work at all. Then all that's left is Jaeon Myung-hoon, Kong Min-hee. Lend me your hearts. Only the power of the sword god dance that has reached martial pinnacle. Just then, Sal Tree, not yet fully extinguished, with only half his body remaining and still scattering butterflies, smiles. That is a bit dangerous, so use it on this old man instead. Shukwang. The Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable throws an annihilation flower at us. Kugaong. The power of annihilation that causes existence itself to wither crashes down upon us. Kong Min-hee and Jaeon Myung-hoon lend their hearts to my sword, but this single strike has to be used solely to block Sal Tree's annihilation flowers. Kong Min-hee manipulates the rules. The principle distorts, and the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable's butterfly-shaped entities become, absolutely, unable to leave the barrier. Only then do the butterflies stop in place. But when the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable snaps his fingers, the butterflies simultaneously transform into transparent seeds and once again soar into chaos. Kong Min-hee tries to intervene again, but the countless annihilation flowers blooming from the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable's body shoot toward her. The clusters of light that had become seeds turn back into butterflies, flapping their wings as they begin to fly beyond the chaos. The Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable meets my eyes. Thanks to the time you bought for me, I was able to create plenty of annihilation flowers, close to the Ganges, sands. Damn it, defeating the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable himself is easy. But stopping every single one of those powers of the future king that he launches in acknowledgement of his own defeat is nearly impossible. Unless one's power is at the level of a heavenly king or has reached martial pinnacle, all immortal arts simply pass through those butterflies. The power infused into the butterfly swarm. It's the exact same powers of the Absolute in the realm of Cakrabata. Perhaps because they contain a part of the future king's power, most of us can't even touch those butterflies. The main body is burning his own life to buy time with annihilation flowers, and the butterfly swarm, imbued with the power of the Absolute, passes through all ordinary attacks. Just one move. Is there a way in just one move, to take them down all at once? It's just then. Immortal art. Yeon's play. A beautiful melody flows from Kim Yeon, and a familiar immortal art begins to envelop the surroundings. The composed face of the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable changes. One, and at that very instant, the final moment of Seo Ran. The past of that time unfolds in this space. All of us look at Seo Ran within her past. From the past, Seo Ran locks eyes with Kim Yeon. Then, Kim Yeon embraces Seo Ran and whispers, "Show them, my daughter." Everyone is watching. Feeling Kim Yeon's warmth, Seo Ran raises her gun. Sal Tree's face twitches as he charges at her, but Oh Yun-sok tackles Sal Tree to block him, and Jaeon Myung-hoon's net and spear wrap around Sal Tree's body, restraining him. Even so, a mere projection of the past could never influence anything beyond its space-time. It can, because I will make it so. Kong Min-hee appears next to Kim Yeon. She raises her hand behind Seo Ran. Clang. A new law is added, and Seo Ran's immortal art becomes the starting point that stretches beyond the space-time of the past. Immortal art. A mere immortal art made by a mortal being at best. A mere immortal art made by one who has not even reached the immortal rank. Sorry to say, but Yeon's play is also an immortal art made by a mere mortal being. I smile as I look at the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable and take my place behind Seo Ran as well. Copyright a person's life, by itself, is an immortal art more powerful than any other. Therefore, this, which holds our child's life, is never weak. Era of fireworks. Seo Ran's clear voice, this time with everyone behind her, is launched toward the sky. The immortal art of Seo Ran fired beyond the past through Kong Min-hee. Era of Fireworks. The Era of Fireworks contains Seo Ran herself. It contains the fate that overcomes fate. Tong, we all pour our power into Seo Ran. And the bullet of fate unleashed from her hand touches Saltree's butterflies. And then, PBO Bong, flames burst forth, and firework-like light brightens the sea of chaos. I shall illuminate the path. Shoot. The heavenly venerable of time Qian Woon, with eyes that have discovered hope, visualizes the trajectory of the butterflies and shows it to us. Seo Ran smiles and raises her gun toward the butterflies flying away from the Saltree heavenly venerable. The power of my impermanent sword. The power of Kim Yian's full blossom. The authority of Kong Min He as a heavenly king. And, Seo Ran's immortal art, imbued with the fate that overcomes fate, possessing the nature to resist the absolute, erupts skyward alongside fireworks. At the edge of the world, at the boundary of chaos and emptiness, we grasp the final legacy left behind by our child, and begin the fireworks show. 716. Pong, Pbong, Pbobiobong. Fireworks burst above the sky of chaos. The gunfire containing my impermanent sword, Kim Yian's infinite, and the totality of everyone's hearts embroider the sky into a sea of flowers. Not yet, not yet. However, Saltree does not give up, and begins to burn the last of his half-body. Qua. From Saltree's body, faint ancient forces begin to endlessly pour out. Those ancient forces take the form of faint butterflies, transparent seeds, or salt crystals, and dye the surroundings without end. At the same time, the ancient forces pouring from Saltree's body begin to target the heavenly venerable of time Qian Woon and my immortal treasures inside the nether treading ship. Is it aiming for the swallowing heaven supreme deity? Qian Woon and Hyang Rule too both meet the conditions to be eroded by Saltree's ancient force, so it seems to be trying to erode my immortal treasures. One will block this side. Please concentrate. However, under Hong Fan's command, the immortal treasures move in perfect coordination, completely evading Saltree's ancient force, and even launch a counterattack. Led by Hong Fan, Ham Jin, Yohee, and Yuhi form hand seals. Plus sleep BE. Plus fame 8 copyright. Wealth 84. CC Lust 8. 1. A hazy aura comes from Hong Fan, a bright aura from Ham Jin, a light-absorbing aura from Yuhi, and a sticky aura from Yohee. The final immortal treasure. All of those auras gather toward the swallowing heaven supreme deity. The swallowing heaven supreme deity does not form a hand seal. It merely opens its mouth. And at that moment, eat 8, quadududuk, something like massive teeth appears in the void and bites into Saltree's half-body. Kudududuk. Bitten by those teeth made of attraction force, Saltree's face contorts and he glares at my immortal treasures. The power of desire pound the remnant of devil heaven, is it? Heh, heh heh, I see, kugugugugek. Saltree, who had been raging and throwing annihilation flowers without end, can no longer hurl them outward in retaliation. The attraction force forming around Saltree is so strong it could swallow an entire heavenly domain by itself. Now, he can only unleash the power of ancient force, infused with the power of the absolute. The heavenly venerable of time reveals the trajectory, intercepting the ancient forces, and the Saltree heavenly venerable is bound on the spot, completely immobilized. Now, all that remains is to cut down the Saltree heavenly venerable. By cutting him down, and pushing him into the crack in this boundary of Kakravada to seal him away, the heavenly venerable battle will end. Lend me your strength, Jaeon Myung-hoon and Kong Min-hee, Oh Yun-sok and Kim Yeon. And the hearts of everyone gathered here settle into my sword. Querararik. The form of the sword god dance changes once more. The name of the new ultimate technique is, I don't know, even though the principles of the world can be transcended by a person's heart. I've come to understand that my heart, too, can become someone else's fate. If that is the case, then perhaps giving names and definitions recklessly may not be the right thing to do. As I infuse into this sword the will of the child who suffocated under the fate I defined too carelessly, I swing the sword down. Nameless 4. Shukwik. The hearts of those contained in the sword merge into one and become white, and my sword turns into a white line that slashes toward the Saltree heavenly venerable. Slice. The Saltree heavenly venerable tries to evade, but in the end, his upper and lower body are severed apart. If his body now simply reaches the sealing ground where the heavenly venerable of time stands, he will be rendered powerless and sealed within the boundary of Kakravada. Ca. But in the very next moment, with a single declaration from the Saltree heavenly venerable, I realize that I have failed to incapacitate him. +1. Designate. Itis the Saltree heavenly venerable's authority, life designation. Kurururuk. With a grotesque sound, the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable's stomach swells. The Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable has become pregnant. At the grotesque and revolting sight, I grit my teeth and swing my sword again at Aria's speed. But the next moment, the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable's stomach bursts, spewing out black liquid and preventing me from slicing him cleanly apart. Kuog. Og. What emerges from Sal Tree's stomach is a slightly smaller Sal Tree. His head is half split by the sword I unleashed, but each side of the bisected head regenerates into two separate heads. One head is that of an old man, and the other transforms into a grotesque face covered in annihilation flowers. The two heads of the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable scream. And at the following scream from the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable, we all flinch. Enough. I want to stop. How long must I keep doing this? Please release the me of this generation. Hooah, hooah, hooah. The Sal Tree with the human face screams, while the Sal Tree with the flower face ignores him and endlessly emits black liquid from its body. That black liquid begins to erode the surrounding space and devour everything. The flower-faced Sal Tree reveals unwavering malice toward us, and the human-shaped Sal Tree, seemingly gone mad, screams incomprehensibly toward the side where my immortal treasures are. Ah, yes, you were there. You were there all along. Please forgive me. Please kill me. Please end me. Enough, 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 I want to stop. Please choose the next generation Sal Trial. I know many good candidates: Black Dragon, Azure Pung, Glass Peacock, Great Mountain, Supreme Deity, and many more. Please, just end this. Sal Tree is showing an opening. Plus surround him. Jaeon, Myong Hoon and Oh Yun Sok each strike with a spear and a fist from either side, encircling him. Everyone, receive my strength. Through full blossom, Kim Yeon infinitely amplifies her power and presses down on the Sal Tree from above, and her power links with all of us, charging our strength to the MIT. Zilling, my friend, die. From below, Oh Hai Seo joins forces with the Heavenly Venerable of Time to begin pulling the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable into the sealing ground. Song Jin and the Immortal Treasures combine strength and block the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable's rear. Piece of trash, stay still. It'll be over soon. Hong Fan glares at the human-faced Sal Tree, pushing him down with the authority of the Swallowing Heaven Supreme Deity. Where is Kong Min-hee? No, there's no time to think. I search briefly for the suddenly vanished Kong Min-hee, but realizing she is gone, I quickly dash toward the front of the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable and unfold my sword dance. Querararik, the impermanent sword, now turned white, sweeps through the void as if drawing a clean stroke, and cleaves through the body of the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable, who fails to find any path to escape. Shukwagik, however. 11. Designate. Once again, from within the belly of the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable, the power of life begins to stir. Is this never-ending, this kind of resurrection? 1. At this rate, in theory, it might even display a cockroach-like vitality that makes even Yuan Li not worth remembering. And, just then, Ziying, Kong Min-hee's voice rings in our ears. Listen carefully, you need to strike at Sal Tree's weakness. Weakness? What are you talking about? I haven't just been slashing around for no reason all this time. I've been attacking the weakness that the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable himself revealed to me. If it were the normal Sal Tree, the weakness might have worked, but not now. That thing has changed. What? Being able to create laws. From within the darkness of the Sea of Chaos, Kong Min-hee reveals herself. Means one can also perceive them. Within her black pupils, a brilliant blue light is burning. And if one looks closely at her blue gaze, it resembles a flower blooming against a black backdrop. That flower looks almost like a firework. You have to target all three Dantian at once. And for that, not even the slightest error can be allowed. The moment even the slightest deviation occurs, Sal Tree will continue to resurrect. Shiver. At her words, for some reason, an image of someone with a hole in their three Dantians flashes in my mind. But at the same time, I understand. Kong Min-hee's words are the truth. Got it. Then I'll take the upper, middle, and lower Dantian. No, but just then, a powerful heart message flies into me, shaking my consciousness, and I nod as I receive it. All right, in that case, I leave the middle Dantian to you. But in that case, I must strike both the upper and lower Dantians simultaneously. Yet, as I read the hearts flowing through this battlefield, I suddenly realize. Now, as Sal Tree once again tries to escape through life designation, there is no more time to waste. Even without speaking, one must understand a comrade's intentions. And in that brief moment, as I read the hearts of everyone gathered here, I come to realize. I see. I understand. I, who intended to cut the upper and lower dantians at once, instead target only the lower abdomen where a new life of the sal tree is being conceived. I leave the final strike to you. In the completely still world of extreme speed. There, 4 figures charged toward sal tree. Lapis lazuli flower heavenly king BRE. The moment she saw the heavenly king's call, she knew. I see. Is it because I forcibly swallowed the sal tree heavenly venerable's western heaven flower field? Kong Minhee lets out a bitter smile. She didn't rise to the position of heavenly king through her own strength. When she met Seo Ran, for some reason, she thought she didn't want to let go. Even though she let go of Seo Eun-yun, she thought she didn't want to let go of that child. And, at last, though she couldn't hold on to that child's life, when she managed to protect the child's dream, she awakened the power of the lapis lazuli flower heavenly king. And then, she understood. So this was Sal Tree's intention all along. To progress Seo Eun-yun's fate, and to complete the fates of the other enders as much as possible. That is, the Sal Tree heavenly venerable who has awakened to the will of the future king. No, perhaps the being known as the future king made their move through the Sal Tree heavenly venerable. That is why she became not the lapis lazuli protecting heavenly king like the previous generation, but the lapis lazuli flower heavenly king. Because it was the owner of the flower field, Sal Tree, who awakened her. It can't go on like this. She clenches her fist. Suaa. As she awakened as the lapis lazuli flower heavenly king, countless memories from parallel dimensions rushed in. Moments where she was always only protected. Moments where she never managed to protect. Moments where she was helpless, powerless without strength. I can't keep going like this. And the moments where she destroyed those she loved with her own hands. As she becomes one with every version of herself from those moments, Kong Minhee's eyes redden. Please watch over me. She must transcend. She must not just carry the name of heavenly king granted by fate, but become a being beyond it. Her head overheats, while her chest grows steadily colder. And finally, her talent explodes. Even without the authority of an ender, she was the fastest to reach the star-shattering stage in the Black Ghost Valley and comprehend the underworld's principles to commune with the underworld. That foremost talent among the enders glows brightly and guides her into a new domain. Stripping away the fate and authority of an ender, she possesses talent equal to the golden divine Yang Su Jin. And with a will to squeeze out her very soul, she takes a step forward. And at last, squeezing out all that talent, her fate, and her heart, she reaches it. To comply, but, she reaches the method to break free from the fate designated by the future king, from the title of the lapis lazuli flower heavenly king. To take one step further. Suaa. Every time, I've only ever lost. That's the kind of person I am. Seo Ran was, to Kong Minhee, who had never been able to protect anything until now, the fruit of the people she loves that she was able to protect for the first time. Even if that fruit was not her own, as long as she was able to bring them even a little happiness by being able to protect it, then she is satisfied with that. If protecting you meant they could be happy, then maybe I could be content with that. But, you gave me so much more than that. I'm sorry, I was able to protect your dream, but I couldn't protect your life. Something settles into Kong Minhee's hand. Itis a sword. From a long past timeline, the heart of someone who once loved Kong Minhee flows into her. And following it, the hearts of countless connections from other timelines who once protected her flow into her as well. Each one is like a flower petal. Those petals gather and form, in her hand, the flower sword number 21. But, from now on, I will protect. She has let far too many beings go without being able to protect them with her own hands. That is why she is sorrowful. Sorrow is like a wall. A wall that traps a person somewhere, never letting them escape. But in this moment, she comes to understand. Just as you abandoned life and moved forward, seeking to reach your dream with your own hands. I too, will not end with sorrow alone. A wall, when standing in your way, may appear endlessly high. But once you manage to cross over it, that wall becomes your greatest support. The same goes for sorrow. Sorrow is something seemingly impossible to overcome, yet all the sorrow she has felt, endured, and passed through is now ultimately supporting her. She cannot reach entering heavens beyond the path. She is not a martial artist like Seo Eun-yun or Kim Young-hoon, nor has she stubbornly trained with a spear like Jeon Myung-hoon. However, though she is no martial artist, she is a genius. A genius arrives at a different answer through a genius's own method. The mantra of the Western Heaven flower field, which Kong Minhee has grasped, transforms in her hands. Mantra BE. A flower that has fallen once does not bloom again. 77% F#% fallen flowers cannot return to branches. Seo Eun-yun's eyes tremble for a brief moment upon seeing this, and relief surges in the eyes of the human-shaped sal tree heavenly venerable who comprehends the truth of it. Now, it can end. Only before the flowers fall does one remember the spring. Number 7 41% spring before the flowers fall. Anti-governing immortal technique. Falling flower. Number 578. A blue flower sword slices through the upper dantian of the sal tree heavenly venerable. A straight fist of white-winged heavenly Pegasus pierces through the sal tree heavenly venerable's chest. And a white impermanence sword cuts open the sal tree heavenly venerable's stomach. Seo Eun-yun wears a complicated smile, white-winged heavenly Pegasus sheds tears, and Kong Min-hee closes her eyes. I bring the sorrow to a close. Unlike herself is the lapis lazuli flower heavenly king, designated by the will of the future king, who dealt with sorrow as a mere force. This answer, found through her own power, begins to embrace sorrow. The sorrow of Seo Ran, the sorrow of parents, the sorrow of a friend's death, the sorrow of one who lost their teacher, the sorrows of all versions of herself that exist across the timelines. The sorrow of the underworld. Embracing all that sorrow, she accepts the fate bestowed by the god of the future, yet takes one step further. Lapis lazuli falling flower heavenly king Beesgere. Not stopping with just completely devouring the western heaven flower field with her own talent, alongside her single strike, she evolves herself one step further as a heavenly king. The name of her newly risen heavenly king self echoes nowhere in the world. Only deep within Kong Min-hee's own heart. Together with the sorrows she embraces, it evolves quietly. And finally, the sal tree heavenly venerable, at last, smiles and falls into the boundary of Kakravada. The remnants of the past manifested by Yian's play also smile as they gradually vanish, and the heavenly venerable of time, waiting below, sheds tears as he sees the powerless body of Sal Tree. Farewell, my friend, Suaa. The Sal Tree heavenly venerable smiles, and as a human, gradually begins to close his eyes. Is it finally, the end now? The moment I long for so desperately. He speaks with a faint smile. Thank you, all of you, for liberating me. Kasasasasasa. As he melts into the domain of nothingness, he wears a warm, peaceful smile. I want to give a gift. Here, this, when I received the will of fate, and was connected to the causality of the first immortal beast king, was already fated to become the last Zero King, the Western Zero King, and the final immortal beast king. And as such a being, I drew close to enlightenment. Even if I had not reached the butterfly, by that very declaration, would have probably realized the essence. The last immortal beast king, too. All of us simultaneously gaze at the Sal Tree heavenly venerable, and as he dissolves into the boundary of Kakravada, he lets out one last statement. Naming supreme deity, Hyeon Rang, the underworld N. His gaze passes between us and lingers briefly where the immortal treasures stand. Street. Perhaps due to the power held by the boundary of Kakravada, who he is referring to cannot be heard and is nullified into nothingness. Never born, miscarried. At those words, Oh Yun-sok's face twitches. Child, they dreamed of, in their imagination. That child is, and having spoken all those words, Sal Tree fully crosses over into the world of complete nothingness. Your enemy. With those last words, Sal Tree vanishes completely. In the place where he once stood, only a single white flower of unknown identity remains. The Sal Tree heavenly venerable is dead. The heavenly venerable battle has come to an end. 717. Saw, we gaze at the resting place of the Sal Tree heavenly venerable. A mere 1,000 years. It's only been about 1,000 years. But to us, it was a painfully long 1,000 years. Wo Wang, the heavenly venerable of time distorts spacetime and speaks aloud. The surrounding space becomes gentle under his influence, and we ease our tension at TTLE. Quote. All of you, thank you. At least, my friend seems to have died as a person in the end. Cheon Woon bows his head to us, and we receive him in turn. He raises his hand, grasps the white flower placed there, and with a slight pull as if plucking it from the void, he breaks it cleanly in the middle. The white stem-like strand remains at the boundary of Kakravada, and the flower enters Cheon Woon's hand. You were asked to bring this to the underworld, weren't you? Take it. I receive the white flower from Cheon Woon. A strong power of ancient force brims from it, and the moment I hold the flower, I feel a faint, heartbeat-like throb rising within. Wo Wang, At the same time, I sense faint traces of memories from a distant past within it. Powerful. It's something I felt the last time I borrowed power from Sal Tree as well, but once again, the memory is overwhelmingly strong. So strong, it might swallow me whole if I'm not careful. Tease not that the memory itself is strong. It's the heart inside it, that's strong. The resentful sorrow and pain that the original owner of this memory must have felt, those things are endlessly swirling inside. And, from within, I feel an unending longing. The speaker in the memory is ceaselessly yearning for some kind of answer. What is life? What is our world? ... And within that yearning, I can sense an overwhelming thirst. Why do I live? Why do I live? To beings living in this world, it is such a primal and distant question. Aside from the answer, just because, any answer one can give is an empty one nobody can be certain of. Why am I still alive? Point to why only me. And as I hear that question, I feel an illusion that even I am falling into a void of futility. Yes, this ancient force is like the canvas of myriad forms and connections. A vicious past that would brainwash anyone who sees it, except for me. I draw upon the nature of the canvas of myriad forms and connections embedded in gracious soul filling the heavens to maintain myself, and push back the memories whispered to me by this great feat. Seal it for now. I place the flower briefly upon the head of the deer that appears from gracious soul filling the heavens, and the pasts held within it seal the power contained in the great feat. As expected, someone of your level is capable of controlling a past of this level on your own, disciple of Salt Sea. Thank you for that time. I recall how the heavenly venerable of time once saved me from Young Sung's clutches and offer him my gratitude. To have suffered such deep pain at Young Sung's hands and yet not bear any resentment toward me, that alone makes me feel gratitude. And more than anything, through you, I now know that the will of the Salt Sea Supreme Deity has not yet perished. It is I who should thank you and the others. Please take this. The heavenly venerable of time once again offers us a bow. There is something I must give to you. Something you must give us, you say. Yes, you've likely heard a few meaningful words from Sal Tree. For example, the eastern and southern twin Sal Trees, the western Zero King, and the northern Gang. I have matters to speak regarding what I've uncovered about them, and a few more matters you still need to know. At those words, we listen solemnly. First, we heavenly venerables are ultimately nothing more than media for the prophecy of the Fate Supreme Deity. Living stars of prophecy, in a sense. Among us, however, Hyeon Mu is little different than Sal Tree and I. If Hyeon Mu is a consistent being who has existed since ancient times, then Sal Tree and I are beings who get replaced each time the ages pass. But we ourselves do not know that we've been replaced. This is because although we are replaced whenever needed, the very history in which the replacement occurs is torn out and becomes ancient force buried deep within the head realm, so the fact of the replacement itself disappears. We exhale a silent sigh at these shocking truths. The standard for replacement is probably when the spirits bearing the memories of Sal Tree and time become unable to endure the long years and desperately yearn for suicide, and that will surpass a certain limit and begin to erase the spirits themselves. He looks at me, more precisely, at the radiance mantra slumbering within me. It is likely that the existence known as Hyuksa edits history and time and replaces us. Is that 50.2? I now understand why Hyeon Mu cried out even more sorrowfully than Sal Tree or time. If Sal Tree and time are replaced without them knowing, does that mean Hyeon Mu cannot be replaced at all? Even the phenomenon of self-erasure by the spirit seems to be somehow impossible for Hyeon Mu. In the end, we are tools. In the distant future, when the absolute being is born into this world, we are the media of prophecy meant to prepare for that moment, the beings who are to bless that existence. We are nothing more than well-crafted immortal treasures. Given the realm you have all reached, you must know what the immortal crown is. Yes, we do. Immortal crown, also called immortal staff, it refers to the attire and authority of immortals, ultimately the process by which immortals walking the pathway of a supreme deity invoke the soul and will of the supreme deity into themselves and are unknowingly and gradually devoured by that supreme deity's soul. And, you must also know what the winged garment is, worn by those who follow the fate pathway. At those words, we let out silent exclamations. Indeed, the winged garment is, in the end, the immortal crown of the future king, his will itself. The more one draws upon the power of fate, the more often one dons the winged garment, the more we are eaten away by the future king, becoming his eyes and ears, or his hands and feet. And especially those whose names or immortal titles include characters meaning heaven. they are even more deeply affected. Born under the design of the future king, they live as supreme deities and die accordingly. Therefore, their circumstances aren't so different from ours. The only difference is that they are slightly less important tools. If the future king so desires, the will of the future king, embedded within them will awaken and control them whenever he pleases. Of course, each one may have countermeasures, but that is all. In the end, all of us will either become meat for the future king or his tools someday. However, becoming his tool lets one learn certain things. The heavenly venerable of time clutches his chest. In the distant past, I spoke with the Salt Sea Supreme Deity, the vast cold Heavenly Lord, and others in various ways, and resolved to accept again the disgrace of the Heavenly Venerables. And as a result, I nearly became like Salt Tree and lost myself. Ow! But thankfully, due to the blessings left behind by Salt Sea and Vast Cold, I barely managed to avoid losing myself. And because of that, gained a few pieces of wisdom from within the power of the future king that tried to consume my being. He points toward somewhere, given the powerful sensation of attraction force. It seems to be toward Mount Sumeru. Each Gandhara of the heavenly venerables in Mount Sumeru. I realize the closer I get to them, the more the blessings of Salt Sea and Vast Cold would collapse, and I would ultimately lose myself. Then, I recall the Gandhara of the heavenly venerable of time still remaining in Mount Sumeru, the source river. I had never understood why he left his Gandhara behind and crossed the sea of chaos with only his consciousness, traveling the distant outer sea. Only now do I understand the reason. So the Gandhara itself is the medium of prophecy prepared by the future king, and also his authority. By any chance, is the Western Heavenly Venerable, the Netherworld Queen Mother, the Heavenly Venerable of the Underworld, also part of the future king's arrangement? You must be thinking so because of the title Western Zero King. But no. Though it may just be the guess of an old man, from now on, let me tell you the true nature of what Sal Tree spoke of. Then, with a hardened face, the heavenly venerable of time points toward Mount Sumeru and begins his explanation. As you know, the eastern and southern twin Sal Trees are Sal Tree and me. As beings who govern time and birth, both of us were born to keep the underworld in check, each symbolizing the absolutes of fate and history. And the northern gang and, as you know, Wo Wunkt. Before us appears the being known as Gang E, who symbolizes the Northern Dipper 7 stars. Behind Gang, 7 stars of 7 colors appear, and as we feel the power emanating from those 7 stars, we come to a realization. I see. The yellow light radiating from the summit of Mount Sumeru, the authority of the absolute of history. And the 7-colored light emitting from the summit, the authority of the third absolute. The power of that third absolute was being devoured midway by Hyeon Mu. Wuriririk. Above the hand of the heavenly venerable of time, the form of the black and 3 great ultimates appears and begins to spin wildly. It looks like a black vortex swirling without end. Symbolizes the third absolute, receiving the absolute being with the power of the 3 great absolutes. That is the fundamental concept of the heavenly venerable's Gandhara. That's strange. I voice my doubt. Names carry power. That's why, if something this grand is part of the future king's plan, even if he names the beings of the east and south as twin Sal Trees, there's no need to give the being of the north a different name. The underworld who is the Western Heavenly Venerable is not someone designed by the future king, so I understand, but why is Hyeon Mu's name different? Time hears my question and nods. I've wondered the same, but Hyeon Mu has always been peculiar. As you know, she alone has never been replaced. And the form of her Gandhara, do you remember it? Yes, I remember. Hyeon Mu's Gandhara. As I'm about to speak, I feel something else that is strange. 0.2 inches. Come to think of it. Yes, the Gandhara of the Heavenly Venerable of the Underworld, the Heavenly Venerable of Time, and the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable. Their main bodies are the Underworld, Source River, and Eastern Heaven Flower Field, respectively, so whenever they move or leave with their Gandhara, their entire Gandhara disappears from Mount Sumeru. But when I recall the battle with Hyeon Mu, even though the interdimensional void and the plane of soul were closed off by her and rendered unusable, they still remained in Mount Sumeru. Through this, Younghoon Hung Nim managed to overlay the entire interdimensional void with his will through the Golden Great Thousand World. If that's the case, what exactly was the main body of Hyeon Mu that fought us back then? For some reason, Hyeon Mu had 2 Gandhara. One was the interdimensional void. The other was the tangled mass of snakes that resembles a black 3 great ultimates which was revealed during the fight with us. Hyeon Mu's Gandhara is different from those of the other heavenly venerables. I ask, full of doubt, and he nods. That's right. The Gandhara you know is probably not Hyeon Emu's main body. It is most likely just a vessel used to receive the power of Enders. Then, Hyeon Emu's true power is. Does that mean, back then, Hyeon Mu didn't use her real Gandhara but just brought along a vessel used for siphoning the power of Enders and fought us with that? That's probably not it. Perhaps reading my doubt, the heavenly venerable of time shakes his head. Hyeon Emu's limit is what you have seen. Rather, Hyeon Mu failed to fully seize her own Gandhara, the interdimensional void, and couldn't properly use its principle or power. Pardon, but a Gandhara is no different from one's own body. Is that even possible? I do not really understand that part myself. The heavenly venerable of time clicks his tongue and shakes his head at my words, while I find myself taken aback by a sudden rush of questions. Just then, Hong Fan suddenly squeezes in beside us and begins to speak. Perhaps it is not actually their body. She received the body of another being instead of her own, so she couldn't properly wield the Gandhara, too. Thinking of it that way certainly seems to resolve many of the doubts. Then the original interdimensional void, whose body is it? The future king's? It's hard to say. If Hyeon Mu is a being necessary for the future king's plan, and the future king is the one who made it so that the interdimensional void could be seized, then perhaps it once belonged to someone who detested fate. Hong Fan strokes his beard as he shares his thoughts, and both I and the heavenly venerable of time nod. That's a reasonable deduction. There are still many puzzling parts, but this much isn't bad. Cheon Woon continues his explanation. Anyway, setting aside who the Gandhara that is the interdimensional void originally belonged to. Hyeon Mu is a peculiar existence in such a way. A being who parasitically clings to a Gandhara that is not her own and absorbs the power of the Enders to create a vessel of heavenly venerable level, roaming about fighting. She is a unique being who, even after countless generations pass, may feel suicidal urges, but whose soul never vanishes under the will to kill herself. That is why I think she may not be a mere personality entity at all, but perhaps a kind of virtual persona, created by the future king out of necessity. At those words, we each fall into thought, and Hong Fan strokes his beard as he quietly murmurs. Quote. In a way, that's not a bad theory. Cheon Woon's explanation continues. The model of Hyeon Emu's Gandhara, still swirling within him, becomes embedded with the 7 stars of 7 colors, and something begins to appear. It then flies into the void and takes its place beside the 2 models of the twin sal trees. That is probably why, unlike the twin sal trees, who are designated as the future king's slaves and tools, a name, like Gang 2 of the North, was given instead of Northern Sal Tree. Then the Western Zero King. Everyone probably knows due to Sal Tree, but the Western Zero King is the final immortal beast king. The naming supreme deity Hyeon Rang. The East and West are the Sal Tree heavenly venerable, who inherited the feet of the first immortal beast king, and Hyeon Rang, upon whom the feet of the final immortal beast king is designated. The North and South are Cheon Woon and Hyeon Mu, who respectively inherited the feats of connecting 6 heavenly domains to complete Mount Sumeru and emptying Mount Sumeru entirely. So the 4 directions of East, West, South, North have some shared causality. However, even considering that causality, there's still something I can't understand. The beings of the East, South, and North all seem to represent the absolutes, so then what does the naming supreme deity represent? If the other 3 heavenly venerables symbolize the absolutes, then what does the naming supreme deity stand for? Quote. Perhaps, they represent something that is not an absolute. At that moment, Hong Fan again interjects. There's something that, while not being an absolute, still stands equal to it. At the heavenly venerable of time's words, Hong Fan nods. There is one thing. It is not an absolute, but holds a value equivalent to an absolute. What is it? Humaneness. Hong Fan responds to Cheon Woon's statement with a self-deprecating smile, as if recalling something. Perhaps, the Western Zero King is a being who symbolizes humaneness. Quote. Then, Hong Fan, a certain doubt arises in me from those words. Of course, because of what the remnants of my master told me, I've come to accept, more or less, that the life of a person is something immensely precious. But even so, there's something I can't understand. You're saying that a being who governs fate values humaneness enough that they would visibly manifest it alongside the birth of an absolute one. Well, I'm not sure about that. Wu Wang. While I am lost in thought, next to the twin sal trees and the model of Hyeon Emu's Gandhara, a model of a taiji in the shape of a fetus appears, and something starts to appear from its center. Squirm, squirm, something begins to stir, and as I gaze upon that something, I see the form of the baby I had seen before. Is that a seed? Looks more like a sprout. No, 'tis a spring. It's spring water. However, what appears as a baby to me seems to look entirely different to the others as each of my comrades describes it in a different form. What is that? I also ask the heavenly venerable of time, and Qianwen shrugs as he answers. I do not know either. But, to my eyes, it appears as 7 stars. Among them, 6 are connected to each other, and 1 is apart from the rest. Pardon. 0.2 inches. 6 stars represent life, 7 stars represent death, so a being that possesses death yet remains within the domain of life. Yes, that is the form of a mortal being. Ow! At Qianwen's words, I get a deeply strange feeling. A being that shows something different to everyone, and evokes a different feeling in each. Even though we've reached the domain where we can perceive the essence of all phenomena in near equivalence. What's more, all of this is just a kind of simulation, constructed by the heavenly venerable of time using models of the heavenly venerables and a supreme deity, yet even that simulation fools the eyes of us who are of heavenly venerable rank. It makes one begin to fathom the rank of the Absolute One. Just then, I suddenly become curious and ask Hong Fan a question. Hong Fan, what do you see that being in the center of those 4 symbols as? In response to my question, Hong Fan answers without hesitation. To my eyes, it looks unmistakably like something that has died but is now resurrecting. Resurrection, what kind of perspective is that? But, considering that Hong Fan is a former member of the First Radiance Supreme Deity and, though he has erased his memories, knows more than anyone else in this world. If his insight is the most accurate one, then is the existence known as the Absolute One not simply being born, but rather a being that died before and is now resurrecting. As I grow confused amidst many questions, we all momentarily fall into panic as we gaze at the form of the simulated Absolute One being born under the blessings of the heavenly venerables and 0 kings of the East, West, South, and North. Then, in the midst of that confusion, the heavenly venerable of time implants something into us. At the time, we clearly understand what we are receiving, but the heavenly venerable of time warns that continuing to Mount Sumeru with it could be dangerous and tells us to seal it. Hence, within the chaos, we erase our memories of what we received from the heavenly venerable of time, and return once more to Mount Sumeru. Kugugugugu. Traveling through the vast sea of chaos, we return to Mount Sumeru borrowing the power of the heavenly venerable of time. In the distance, the familiar world of the inverted cone comes into view. Now there are 3 Gandhara. Feeling each Gandhara of the 3 remaining heavenly venerables within the inverted cone, I ride Songjin and fly toward Mount Sumer. We're nearly at Mount Sumeru. We'll arrive shortly, but I look toward Oh Yun-sok and ask, isn't it about time you told me, Hung Nim, the immortal Tao of 7 stars that you are walking? Yes, I know. Oh Yun-sok, who has remained silent until now after hearing the explanation from the heavenly venerable of time and coming all the way to Mount Sumeru, finally begins to speak. I'll tell you the truth as it is. The immortal Tao of 7 stars is in fact identical to the immortal Tao of the mountain that you walk. At last, he reveals to me the secret he has been keeping all this time. 718. Suaa. While I'm talking with Oh Yun-sok, the nether crossing ship enters Mount Sumeru. This feeling, I notice that for some reason, the entirety of Mount Sumeru is shrouded in a faint steam. Naming Supreme Deity, it's Hyaon Rang's power. Hyaon Rang's power blankets Mount Sumeru, and from within, I read a faint malice directed at us. It seems the owner of names is targeting us. I will move us to the underworld immediately. Perhaps having sensed the malice, Songjin attempts to make contact with the underworld. Whether fortunately or unfortunately, the entrance to the underworld gradually begins to open to greet us. That's when it happens. Wong, deep inside the Mount Sumeru covered in steam. From within, a massive fist of vapor comes flying toward us. The power inside is unimpressive. I draw the impermanent sword toward what I presume is Hyaon Rang's single strike, cutting downward then rising up. Just then, no, Seo Eun-yun. You must not even graze it. Oh Yun-sok shouts in panic. Woo-duk. The name Seo Eun-yun becomes a shackle binding me, rendering me unable to move. Damn it, I have no choice but to take one hit. Just as I prepare to take one blow from Hyaon Rang's strike and counterattack, Oh Yun-sok throws himself between me and the fist of mist, knocking me away, and extending his hand toward the first. Kwang. Unable to endure the fist of a supreme deity, Oh Yun-sok is flung back, bleeding from every part of his body. Yun-sok hung nimt. I hastily catch Oh Yun-sok, who mutters while coughing blood. Kayak, Master's strike, must not even be grazed. If you so much as graze tea, your name will be swallowed by Master, and the ownership of your name will pass to him, then Master will gain the authority to rename your original name. Ow, for now, you absolutely must not confront Master head on. Master is too difficult an opponent to face with sheer strength alone. No matter how strong you are, now is the time to regroup. At Oh Yun-sok's urgent words, I grit my teeth and call out to Song Jin. Song Jin, it is ready, I shall escort you. At that moment, Song Jin's hull melts into Mount Sumeru and returns to its true form, the attraction force toward the netherworld. Tishva, my comrades and I naturally flow into the underworld along with Song Jin, and when we regain our senses, we find ourselves at the deepest depths of the underworld. We have arrived at the audience chamber of the heavenly venerable of the underworld. However, only I and the Enders Jaeon Myung-hoon, Kong Min-hee, Oh Yun-sok, Kim Yeon, and Oh Hai-seo have reached this place. It seems the rest have not made it here. You have succeeded. On top of that, Hia has awakened as a heavenly king, and it seems everyone has gained some enlightenment. At the words of the underworld, we let out bitter smiles. All matters concerning your child have just been conveyed to me through Song Jin. You must have many thoughts, but there's no need for great concern. Surik. Following that, the underworld points a finger at Kim Yeon. The day that child becomes a heavenly king, you will come to understand everything. Can't you just refreshingly tell us right now? This is the one thing I cannot reveal to you right now. It is a plan Vast Cold emphasized repeatedly. It seems that the power of In and Yeon left behind by Vast Cold is a plan in and of itself. In a way, it might feel as though our bond has been toyed with by Vast Cold, and such a feeling could bring discomfort. But for some reason, both Kim Yeon and I feel strangely at ease. Perhaps, because the realization the child gave us is about choosing life under fate. Even if it's a fate left behind by Vast Cold, we've already decided in our hearts to accept that child as our own within it. In that case, it can't be helped. I will wait a little longer. Thank you for your understanding. I nod as I face Kim Yeon, and seeing this, the underworld gives an ambiguous bitter smile. Now then, did you bring the feet placed upon Sal tree? Yes, Suat. At the underworld's words, I summon gracious soul filling the heavens. On the head of gracious soul filling the heavens is Sal tree's sealed feet, that blooms in the form of a flower. Reveal your essence, Wu Wang. As soon as the underworld speaks, the white flower sealed in gracious soul filling the heavens folds in on itself and condenses into a small shape. The small, compressed flower soon transforms into a transparent seed, and flies into the underworld's grasp. The primordial form of ancient force. 0%. The seed of all possibilities, and yet now nothing more than a meaningless lump. She holds the transparent seed, gazing at it for a moment. Then, a little while later, the underworld throws the seed toward the wheel behind her. Ow! Wu Wang. The wheel seems to suck in the seed, and soon the seed is pulled into the strange rotational force swirling around the wheel and vanishes somewhere. I realize what the underworld has done. She reincarnated the ancient force. Wu Wang. The seed, guided by the wheel of the underworld, travels to a faraway heavenly domain and reincarnates as a living being there. What have you just done? What if Sal Tree resurrects, too? Treating the feet branded onto Sal Tree as a soul and reincarnating it into the womb of a living being. That act could very well lead to the resurrection of the Sal Tree heavenly venerable, so I can't help but panic. Do not worry, Sal Tree will not revive because of this. Rather, this is precisely the way to seal and slowly extinguish that feat. The underworld explains calmly. If the ego embedded in this ancient force is made to endure endless lives while having its memories sealed temporarily, then the feat experienced in the past, and the personality derived from that feat, will gradually distort and deteriorate. It is not merely the scale of the 1,000 past lives you experienced through the flawless mantra. Through reincarnations numbering in the tens of thousands, hundreds of millions, reaching even the scale of Kalpa, this feat, this ancient force will be transformed into a single soul and severed from the control of the owner of fate. If such an independent soul later reads the memory embedded in its past, the memories embedded in the feat, and interprets them according to its current circumstances, then that alone can be considered to have extinguished the value of the feat. Editor. In Hinduism, a kalpa is 4.32 billion years. In Buddhism, there are many types of kalpa. Though it is not standardized, conventionally, a regular kalpa is approximately 16.8 million years, a small kalpa is 1,000 regular kalpas approximately 16.8 billion years, a medium kalpa is 20 small kalpas approximately 336 billion years, and a great kalpa is 4 medium kalpas approximately 1.344 trillion years. Quote. But what if that soul remembers its past and instead reawakens as the essence of the future king, as the Eastern twin sal tree? Do not worry. Even then, the self-consciousness formed through reincarnation will remain within that ancient force. At the underworld's following words, we can't help but shudder. That ancient force will believe it is the true future king, and in the end, it will fight the currently existing future king in a struggle for control over mind and sovereignty. Therefore, if this ancient force awakens as the essence of the future king, it will become our ally, and if it does not awaken, it will simply dissolve within the eternity of reincarnation, weakening the power of the future king. Quote. An impressive strategy. Then, do we also have to seal the heavenly venerable of times Gandhara in a similar manner and bring back his feet? There is no particular need for that. When the time comes to challenge the audience chamber, the heavenly venerable of time will control his own feet accordingly so it does not become part of the future king's strength. As for Hyeon Mu, thanks to you and Kim Young-hoon, she has practically been reduced to a near useless state. In fact, by the time you all challenge the audience chamber, most of the potential powers that could become the future king's strength will have already been sealed. At the underworld's continued words, I smile faintly. Therefore, thank you for your efforts. Now, rest for a while. As if there's nothing more to command or concern herself with regarding us, the underworld praises us and opens the gate of the underworld's deepest depths, as if to say we may leave whenever we wish. Now, until Oh Yun-sok, Kim Yeon, and Oh Hai-seo become heavenly kings, there doesn't seem to be anything I particularly have to do. Even if the naming supreme deity is said to have awakened the will of the future king, just one naming supreme deity can be sufficiently subdued if Oh Yun-sok, Kim Yeon, and Oh Hai-seo join forces, so there's no real concern. But I do not leave the chamber but instead gaze at the underworld. Thank you. However, there are many things I wish to ask. I speak aloud the questions of most wanted to ask. Kong Min-hee's origin essence has fundamentally changed in some way from what I knew. Is this, too, the work of the Imperial Venerable? It's a matter I've known all along because of her overwhelming presence, but I haven't been in the right state of mind to ask until now. Kong Min-hee's origin essence has changed. More precisely, from the moment she went out to the outer sea with us and had a brief conversation with Oh Hai-seo, something about her presence itself seems to have changed. I believe it must be because of an order from the underworld. If not for a command from the underworld, why else would Kong Min-hee's origin essence have changed so completely? Kong Min-hee answers my question. I'll explain. It was Master's suggestion. She told me to divide off the part of my origin essence of vice that governs evil, and give it to Oh Hai-seo so she could advance. What? 2. Because of that, the immortal Tao Oh Hai-seo is currently walking is. Oh Hai-seo cuts in and answers. Severing evil, by. It's the immortal Tao for severing evil. If I can reach the position immortal lord through this, I should be able to rise to heavenly king. Right, and after giving Oh Hai-seo a portion of the immortal Tao of vice, what remained of my origin essence of vice became the origin essence of karmic retribution Warurururuk. Above her hand, karmic fire blazes fiercely. Unlike before, this karmic fire now burns blue, well suiting Kong Min-hee. Seeing this, I realize she has fully seized the karmic fire. The underworld wishes to support us with everything she has, and because of that, she needed an appropriate immortal Tao for the current vestige liberation immortal, Oh Hai-seo. That is why she ordered me to split my origin essence. Also, thanks to splitting T, 1 am now able to control karmic fire even more perfectly. Certainly. Indeed, Kong Min-hee, who sees the origin essence of karmic retribution, seems to handle karmic fire more easily than before, and the portion given to Oh Hai-seo also seems to suit her quite well. Just as the underworld once recommended the immortal Tao of Abyss to me, it seems she has long been aware of the optimal immortal Tao for each of us. And as I look up toward the underworld, I bring up the conversation I had with Oh Yun-sok. In that case, there is something I wish to report to the Imperial Venerable. It is a question regarding the immortal Tao of 7 stars that Yun-sok Hung-nim is currently walking. It is most likely about Oh Yun-sok's origin essence, I presume. Yes, currently. Is Yun-sok Hung-nim, like how the Imperial Venerable commended Min-hee to split off her immortal Tao, cultivating in the immortal Tao split from the Great Mountain Supreme Deity's origin essence. That is half correct. Half. 0.2 inches. Because right now, the seed of the immortal Tao of 7 stars that O Yun Sok is cultivating is embedded within the corpse mountain blood sea of the great mountain supreme deity, being slowly reabsorbed. Ow! At those words, my body trembles as I realize what the underworld is trying to say. By reabsorbing, means, you mean the immortal Tao of 7 stars was split off from the immortal Tao of the mountain. After the death of the Salt Sea Supreme Deity, it was done by the Great Mountain Supreme Deity GWAKM. And the reason GWAKM went so far as to split his origin essence, you already know why. Her fingertip points toward O Yun Sok's blue sky armor. The immortal beast mountain destroying demon ape. Despite dying himself with the devilish in order to overcome fate, that part of GWAKM that could not be stained and remained pure, and so, GWAKM had to cut the part off with his own hands and devour it again from the outside. His heart demon and the personality that threatened him the most. In order to split off that personality, GWAKM went as far as severing even his own origin essence and created a new immortal Tao. The result of that splitting from the seat of Salt Mountain, is the seat of Sea of Nature 45. It is the immortal Tao that the naming supreme deity slightly altered under the name of 7 stars. At the following words of the underworld, O Yun Sok bitterly strokes his blue sky armor. And the original material of that armor you're wearing, is one of the fragments that formed when the mountain-destroying demon ape resisted as he was hunted down and killed by the great mountain supreme deity. In other words, you and your sect, the Azure Heaven Creation Sect, have been deeply connected to the immortal Tao of 7 stars from the beginning. Thank you. That must be the reason, then, why Master recommended the immortal Tao of 7 stars to me. More precisely, he was probably trying to reach mountain-destroying demon ape through you. Mountain-destroying demon ape, too. Yes, mountain-destroying demon ape who had split off from the great mountain supreme deity in Hyeon Rang, were friends of a kind that will probably never again exist in this world. Perhaps, through mountain-destroying demon ape, he was trying to restore the broken great mountain supreme deity. O.M. Sok hears those words and asks a question. Then, O Imperial Venerable, I must face my master from now on. And, am still merely a great net immortal of heaven and earth dual cultivation, and I haven't yet completely resolved the personality division problem that true immortals of heaven and earth dual cultivation experience. Moreover, if the origin essence I must reach is being reabsorbed by the great mountain supreme deity, then what must I do going forward? I beg the Imperial Venerable, please help me. Please lend me your wisdom on what I must do. At Oha's plea, the underworld's eyes twitch before speaking. You already know the answer and yet you ask me. Firmly hold a righteous heart and move forward. With the heart that acts for chivalry, keep your faith. I have no words beyond that to offer you. Understood. I realize what ma'am has resolved to do. I see. AMU intends to reclaim with his own hands the origin essence of 7 stars that is being absorbed into the great mountain supreme deity. The seat, or origin essence, is not something fixed, but a kind of law that exists in this world. If one possesses a nature more compatible with that law than even the great mountain supreme deity, then taking it away is entirely possible. If it hasn't been completely absorbed into the origin essence of the mountain, then it's of lower difficulty than mine. He doesn't need to kill the great mountain supreme deity and take his position of supreme deity. He only needs to retrieve the origin essence that is ambiguously held in his hands. W.M. Hung Nim, the naming supreme deity has awakened to the essence of the future king. And when that news reached us, though he didn't show it openly, the one who had the most intense reaction was. Everyone may have remained silent, but they all understood. Just as white-winged heavenly Pegasus ended the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable, their teacher and parent, with their own hands. So too must the naming supreme deity be ended by MMA's hand. After those words, Hung Nim bows to the underworld and, without a trace of hesitation, turns and begins leaving the deepest depths of the underworld. W.M. Hung Nim. Un Yun Ah. I call out to him quietly, worried for him, but instead, he calls out to me and speaks. Just this once, can't borrow your hands. This is a matter between my master and me, between disciple and teacher. So, even if I die, just this once, let me put master to rest with my own strength alone. Point 22 Pardon, even so, even if Jaeon, Myung Hoon, Kong Min Hee, and I can't help, can't at least Kim Yeon, no, at the very least, can't Oh Hai Seo help you? I ask, not understanding his words. If you must insist, then one thing. Only after I die fighting master, only then, intervene. It's a request. Even white-winged heavenly Pegasus, who defeated the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable, received our help. I understand that it must be with his own hands that he defeats naming supreme deity, but why must it, only, be his hands? I know that too, but there's one reason that I insist on facing Master alone. Turns to look at us and smiles faintly. Either way, finished now. Ow. Suddenly, I noticed something in MMA's gaze. Juan. What was his name again? I can't remember. Suddenly, I recall that once took a direct hit from Hyeon Rang's strike. Has he already retrieved his own disciple's name and is now controlling it? Either way, once you've been struck by Master even once, even the underworld can't protect my end. The title of owner of something means that one really is, within that domain at least, close to absolute. Since he has retrieved my Namal, I'm already beyond saving. As the disciple of the owner of names, he seems to sense his end. Damn it, I've become strong. Now, unless it's someone like the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable, someone of the Heavenly Venerable rank who has awakened to the essence, it is nearly impossible to kill me. However, even if I cannot die, I still can't stop the death of my comrades. I'm still pitifully weak. No, it's beyond weak. It's pathetic. Even after becoming this powerful, even after becoming this close to omnipotence, I still can't protect even a single friend. I grit my teeth tightly, feeling pain and disgust from that fact. Just what am I? It is at that moment. But even if the me of the present ends, if I die, then please look after what comes after. Quote. Pardon, I won't go into details. You haven't said anything all this time either, so I'll believe there's a reason. Ow. Quote. Did he notice? It's not like with Jaeon Myung-hoon. But still, he seems to have noticed that I tamper with time in some way or another, or target what comes after their deaths. I see. It's Oh Seo. In this life, Oh Seo hasn't been fully moved by me. And yet, without any clear causality, she follows me obediently. He must have drawn a clue and made his own deductions from that. He read the power of the oath and vow sworn by the Oh Seo of the previous timeline, who was moved by me and swore to follow me. He is, after all, the disciple of the god of contracts and oaths. My friend, and Oh Seo's family. He recognized my change through the change in his family. Use my death as nourishment. I listened to MMA's heart conveyed through Indra's net and grit my teeth. And, through it, uncover Master's essence, the role imposed upon the ones known as the three heavenly venerables and the Western Zero King, and the will of the future king that has been imposed upon him. Uncover it all. He declares his resolve to defeat the naming supreme deity without our help and steps beyond the underworld. Seeing him like that, I realize there's absolutely no way to stop him. Even if the current me dies, as long as I can someday reach my family, it doesn't matter what I sacrifice. So, ask of you, Seo Eun-yun. You're a father now too, so you should understand. Kwang, O equals kicks off from the underworld and soars, rising straight toward the sky. Toward the massive giant of vapor in the sky. And so, stands against the vast heavens that is the naming supreme deity. That is, the first battle, between Mam and the naming supreme deity. 719. Cooing. I step outside the outskirts of the underworld and gaze at Mount Sumeru. The inner sea of Mount Sumeru. There, a battle unfolds between him and Hyeon Rang. The fists of the giant god of vapor, the naming supreme deity Hyeon Rang, and MMS, who has turned into a giant with his body steeped in a sea of starlight, collide against each other. And as I watch them, I realize something. The more Hyeon Rang and Ma Hung Nim collide, the more Ma Hung Nim's presence fades. Each time he collides with the giant of vapor, his body seems to be gradually enveloped in mist, as though being pulled into an illusory dream. I keep observing him, trying to understand what kind of phenomenon this is. I need to capture at least one thing with my eyes. I can't let Hung Nim's sacrifice be in vain. Though I truly hate it, realize that I must return. Regressing by my own will is something I detest to the very core. A single return means a single life is gone just like that. But, my friend has staked his life on that assumption. So, just this once, even if I have to give up one life, I must turn it back. Even as my hands tremble, I keep watching the battle between the two. With my consciousness having reached Araya consciousness, I perceive Hyeon Rang's authority even more clearly. And in that moment, I enter a new world, centered around the naming supreme deity. Suaa, like ink spreading, a completely new Mount Sumeru appears. That is, the vision of a supreme deity. The entire Mount Sumeru is formed of dense names, and those countless names create countless flows. Those flows gather to form an inverted cone, shaping the boundaries of numerous heavenly domains, inner sea, and the outer sea. And among them, there is a single point where all those countless flows converge. I realize that that point is none other than Hyeon Rang, the origin of all the names that exist in this world. Thump, thump. More precisely, he serves as the heart that helps the powers known as names to properly circulate in this world. That is the naming supreme deity. I immediately realize what this vision I'm witnessing truly is. Is this the vision of those who walk the immortal Tao of naming? Through Araya consciousness, I have become able to see the vision of even the opponent's immortal Tao. Ah, see, I realize that this is the origin essence. Origin essence is not a particular material or object, it is, by itself, a world. No, that's not it. It's not just because I reached Araya consciousness that I can see this vision. It is because I am directly witnessing a supreme deity fully exercising their power that I can see this vision. Beings who seize the origin essence and become the origin essence itself. Monsters who do not get devoured by the origin essence that is also called the heavenly Tao, but instead devour the heavenly Tao itself. Those who devour an entire immortal Tao. Those who consume the very law itself, those are the supreme deities. Watching the battle between the naming supreme deity and Mam, I begin to understand, at least partially, what the little-known process of advancing to supreme deity entails. To advance to supreme deity, one must at least, during the time of being an immortal lord, have faced a supreme deity in battle. Before one can viscerally experience what kind of being a supreme deity is through a fierce battle, the difficulty of advancing to supreme deity must be immense. Kurururung. I watch the naming supreme deity, and I gradually grasp more clearly what a supreme deity is, and what a seat truly means. The naming supreme deity throws a punch at Mam, a simple straight punch, devoid of any enlightenment of martial principles. Yet with that punch, the names composing him scatter. He is directly striking the law of names that exists in phenomena. The arms, legs, torso, meridians, immortal body, inner world, and all other names that make up Mam are struck, and the blows surpassing the physical force of reality break Mam apart. Tracing the origin of that phenomenon, I gradually dig into the secret behind Hyeon Rang's power. I see, and when I grasp the principle behind Hyeon Rang's power, Hong Fan arrives beside me with the immortal treasures. Strangely, although the names of all phenomena in the universe are clearly visible to me while directly observing the naming supreme deity, for some reason, Hong Fan shows only the character Hong number 1 and nothing more of his name is visible. It feels as if something has been severed. This guy used to be one with the radiance mantra. Is it because he's now separated from it? Slightly puzzled, I ask. What brings you here? Did Master not come here to analyze Great Master Yun Sok's battle? As Master's subordinate, how could I not come when my master has? Is that so? Too, thank you. It would be helpful if you assist with the analysis as well. Whatever the case, Hong Fan's abilities are genuine. If he helps, it will make things considerably easier. Cooing, is struck by Hyeon Rang and sent flying. And the names that compose him begin to scatter in fragments. Can you see it too, Hong Fan? Hung Nim is. Yes, I can. It is likely because the naming supreme deity is properly unleashing his power. Then, after observing for a while, Hong Fan's eyes gleam as he speaks. I understand the principle. I see how the power of names works. That was fast. With only a brief look, he's figured out the principle behind the naming supreme deity's power. Though it is called names, in reality, it is closer to a relationship. Or perhaps the two are not so different after all. Hong Fan begins explaining the analysis he has made of Hyeon Rang's power. In the end, the power of names wielded by Hyeon Rang functions as follows. Names exist, ultimately, to be called by others. Therefore, the ability to steal, erase, or rename a name means being able to sever the relationships that existed with oneself. My comrade was Wahung Nim of the O clan. Not some unpronounceable entity called him. Those who lose their names begin to feel all their relationships vanish and break apart, and in the end, they are forgotten by all and cease to exist. 'Tis a power specialized in killing immortal beasts or earth immortals. Because they govern the power of life and history, immortal beasts and earth immortals are even more difficult to kill than heaven immortals. But if they are struck by the naming supreme deity's power, they would not be able to resist and would gradually wither away and die. In a way, it's similar to poison. No, more accurately, it's closer to radiation exposure than poisoning. Gradually, has the names that comprise him erased and turns into a clump of steam. He's not disappearing, a being who has lost all names and been forgotten by all. He is becoming a mass of ancient force. His form grows fainter, and Hyeon Rang no longer uses his authority against him. At the same time, I feel a strange sense of déjà vu. What is this? Everything feels dreamlike, everything is oddly unreal, and dizzying. At that moment, Hyeon Rang meets my eyes. Have you been watching? Zero Ender. Not long ago, I realized my essence, and felt the duty to awaken your fate. Those eyes, like the sun and moon, look upon me. The giant god of vapor points at me, but as I read the history of the Eastern Twin Sal tree, I came to understand. You will no longer lose anything over a simple connection. Though I must give you pain and deprivation to progress your fate. I realized I cannot awaken you through a mere play of fate. S0, what are you going to do? LL, as the Western Zero King, declare. You, O Ender, from this day forth, shall lose everything. Since you are M's teacher, I don't want to disregard you, but I'm curious. What exactly can someone like you do to me? I shall not do anything to you. For you have already grown too strong for my hands to reach. However, if it is not you, but another being, the story changes. You are saying you will target my comrades? No, they are protected by the Western Heavenly Venerable, so I dare not lay a hand on them either. Then you can't touch anything related to me, so how dare you think you can do anything to me? I will say it again. You cannot be affected. However, things that are not you, I can interfere as much as I please. For instance, Kugugugugu, Hyeon Rang raises his hand. If I erase the concept of names from all of Mount Sumer, you will inevitably struggle, poisoned by a fatal toxin, and have no choice but to follow your fate. Are you declaring that you can erase that concept from all of Mount Sumeru? I ask him in disbelief. Not even the Heavenly Punishment Supreme Deity or the Great Mountain Supreme Deity could erase concepts like mountain or heavenly punishment from this world, yet you claim you can do that now. Of course, had it been the former me, it would have been impossible. You're saying it's possible now because you've awakened your essence. Even with the power of myself having awakened the essence, it remains impossible. With those words, I notice that the faint vapor spreading across Mount Sumeru is beginning to grow thicker and thicker. I see. This power is a familiar heaven and earth spiritual energy fills Mount Sumeru. This heaven and earth spiritual energy is the heaven and earth spiritual energy of the head realm. LL, Hyeon Rang, in the name of the rightful heir of the head realm, declare. The origin essence of life, omniscience. From the farthest reaches of Mount Sumeru where the head realm lies, an immense light of heaven and earth spiritual energy bursts forth and pierces down upon Hyeon Rang. The sight looks like a pillar of light piercing through the entire expanse of Mount Sumeru. Lin the three heavens great thousand world, by the authority of the owner of names, I reclaim all names of the Sumeru three heavens great thousand world. Suaa. With that one declaration, the vapor erupting around Hyeon Rang grows even denser. At the same time, I feel an illusion as if my mind has suddenly gone blank. Wemi, even as I try to think, the very concept of nouns is gone. No, at this level, it feels as though even the concept of letters themselves has been erased. Names have been defining the contours of the world, and with their disappearance, all boundaries in this world have become meaningless. That's right. The boundary between the inner sea and outer sea of Mount Sumeru blurs, and Mount Sumeru begins to collapse. I am struck with shock as I realize what the naming supreme deity is aiming for. In a world where all outlines have vanished, he wants me to recall the figures of my comrades and connections, to remember their forms, and to yearn for their names. But do not do so. I simply, quietly repentantly enlighten on my own history. And in a single moment, Shwikik, I draw the impermanent sword and swing it. Jjayok, that is all. At the same moment, a single strand of mist covering Mount Sumeru clears. Impressive. What have you done? Then, without a word, I raise my sword and strike down toward Mount Sumeru. Shwukik. This is Shwukik. Each time I strike down with my sword, Hyeon Rang's vapor peels away, and the world regains its outlines. What is this? Greater than what is happening? How? 1. I have taken all the connections that are the source of your strength, the names of the hearts you hold dear, and taken them into my hands to create a world of grand mist J and percent. Words are unnecessary. I continue to grip my sword, refining my form as I did when I first began learning martial arts. Shwikik, 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 shwikik. Suaa. At the same time, the mist pouring out from me begins to push back the mist that has veiled Mount Sumeru. This, one, Chuaik. What is this? I do not answer. There is no need to answer. What is imbued within my sword is the thing called failure. Failure has no name, because it cannot be attached to one. I simply pour all the failures I have experienced into this sword, and speak. 1. As the immortal beast king, issue a command to all the nameless within the Sumeru three heavens great thousand world. Failure has no name, but even though it has no name, it does not mean it holds no meaning. For the failure of the present is what becomes the stepping stone to move forward to the next. Kwaik. The sword wind of the impermanent sword sweeps across the entirety of Mount Sumeru. A spiraling wind drives away the pale mist. Names may have vanished across Mount Sumeru, but that does not mean meaning has vanished with them. Filling the heavens' governing view. Decide your own names, solely by the failures you have accumulated yourself. Ding. The entirety of Mount Sumeru trembles. At the same time, a Brahma bell seems to ring, and as Mount Sumeru hums, the once blurred world begins to clarify and regain its outlines. If meaning does not vanish, then neither do relationships. And if relationships do not vanish, then names can still be remembered. My eyes meet Hyeon Rang's. You will destroy Mount Sumeru. That is impossible, for I will not allow it. He gazes at me in silence before asking a question. How strange. Why do you not kill me? If you simply surround me with the immortal art you just used and strike me down, you could surely kill me. Isn't it obvious? Your battle is not yet over. Tukwang. At those words, Wham's fist bursts forth from Hyeon Rang's abdomen. Who, Wm Hung Nim, is not dead yet. Now his presence has completely vanished, and even I can barely sense him. But still, he undeniably exists. And Hyeon Rang, sensing something strange, turns his gaze to me. You, still have not forgotten him. I erased the name and thereby deleted history from within all relationships. He should have died in loneliness, forgotten by all, and yet, you still remember him. Plus of course, it's true, even I still cannot recall the name of Ma'am. But I definitely remember, even if the existence has been erased, the connection he and I shared remains within me. From the moment I shattered the canvas of myriad forms and connections and the colorless glass sword with my own hands, to create the immortal crown. I have, never, forgotten my connections. You, rightful heir of the head realm. I step out from the underworld and walk into the interior of Mount Sumeru. Then, stepping over the twin-holding heavenly domain, I approach the naming supreme deity who is tearing out Mum's arm. Absurd. Kwang. The naming supreme deity strikes me. As the fist of vapor touches me, I feel the authority of my name gradually flow into him, but I do not care. Son of the origin essence of life, omniscience. I grab the now fully transparent and almost presence-less existence of Hung Nim, and lift him up. You shall remain powerless for a moment. Jaejeong. The god of humans strikes me. However, I do not counterattack and focus solely on lifting him up. Though I can't feel his presence, MS00N rises. Whisper, whisper, because his presence has vanished, I can barely hear the words of Ma'am. But I receive his will through Indra's net and nod. My name, please do not worry. After all, I reveal my true body. Wearing a white round collar robe, in the form of a faceless mountain spirit with a head of candle flame, I am struck by Hyeon Rang as I completely lift him up. As long as there are those who remember me, I will never forget. And where do such people exist? Once your name is stolen by Master, it's over. Plus once, you say. Sabak, Sabak. Beside the giant god of vapor and the mountain spirit in a white round collared robe, a giant deer appears. Itis the gracious soul filling the heavens, completed by devouring my canvas of myriad forms and connections and tainted soul filling the heavens. Inside gracious soul filling the heavens, countless memories are overflowing. Before, upon seeing the form of a baby, I understood the principle of the radiance mantra, and realized that the essence of my regression ability is the creation of parallel dimensions. In other words, though it may be another timeline, it remains, rather than vanishing in vain. Therefore, even if my name is taken in this timeline, even if my relationships are stolen in this timeline, the name of me of another timeline still remains. As if catching on to my words, Hyeon Rang's sun and moon eyes gleam. I see. Is that how it is? But how foolish. Have you forgotten that due to you, the emperors can now interfere in other timelines as well? Hyeon Rang strikes me again. And with that, my name in another timeline is taken once more. However, I remain composed. Excellent. Then, you just need to repeat that 2000 more times. I have reached the ultimate of martial arts, attained the realm of the immortal Beast King, and risen to the pinnacle of heaven earth great net immortal. Moreover, even the wheel now nearly obeys my will. It is no longer a situation where I am unacknowledged as before. I can feel it. The wheel, that noble wheel now judges me as having, nearly reached the standard, and properly lends me its power. As a result, I am no longer at a level where I could be killed by a few punches from the naming supreme deity Hyeon Rang. No, I don't even feel a sense of danger, let alone death. Plus if you want to threaten me. Kwang, Hyeon Rang's fist collides with my forehead. At least bring someone like the heavenly punishment supreme deity, Kwang. Then, with my headbutt, glass true fire explodes Hyeon Rang's hand and flings it away. In the name of the owner of names, I command. Wu Wang, my name reacts. You shall not dare oppose me. You shall step aside for a moment and simply watch as Oh Yun Sok dies before me. Jaejaeok. At the same time, my entire body stiffens. It is the same phenomenon as when I first received Hyeon Rang's fist. But it doesn't matter. Wuduk, Wudududuk. You're not Hyeon Mu, nor heavenly punishment, nor great mountain. Showing this much of an opening to someone like you is nothing at all. It is certainly a powerful binding technique. Even I have no confidence in breaking out of it within 1 second. Had it been Hyeon Mu, the great mountain supreme deity, or the heavenly punishment supreme deity, they would have seized this opportunity to tear me into 1,000, 10,000 pieces, but against Hyeon Rang, a second is nothing. Wing, the wheel begins to turn, breaking the binding. Immediately after, at the center of the wheel, a white three great ultimates appears and begins to spin. The wheel shines with starlight, releasing limitless and inexhaustible power, and Mount Sumeru begins to shake. What is this? Witnessing this outrageous power, Hyeon Rang trails off in disbelief. If you had wanted to progress my fate or whatever, you should have at least done it before I became the immortal Beast King. I look at Hyeon Rang and inject power into Wa. +1 will not face you. Power nearing infinity pours into Mam, and the one whose existence had nearly vanished begins to revive. Because this is between you and Hung Nim, a matter of master and disciple. The naming supreme deity Hyeon Rang. He is not as troublesome an opponent as the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable. Nor as sharp an enemy as the Heavenly Punishment Supreme Deity. Nor as threatening as the true martial Great Emperor Hyeon Mu. He doesn't even reach the level of annoyance of the Radiance 8 Immortals. He is, quite literally, just an average level Supreme Deity. Since he wields the authority of names, getting properly hit by that power can be dangerous, but it's only just that much. He cannot defeat me in a single blow, nor render me powerless. If Hung Nim defeats you, we'll simply take your head. No matter what you want from me, no matter what pain you intend to inflict, it won't go as you wish. Because, my friends, including MW Hung Nim, are far stronger than what you imagine. Kwang, Hyeon Rang throws everything he has to push me away from Mam, whom I'm restoring. Then, the recovered approaches Hyeon Rang. His presence still remains faint, but it doesn't matter. His power has already fully returned to its former state. Thank you, Seo Eun-yun. Aus calls my name and walks toward Hyeon Rang. Kwang, Am's fist strikes Hyeon Rang's face. I see. To defeat you, I must target your connections and your world, but to target those, I must first defeat you, is it? A contradiction, indeed. Hyeon Rang gathers vapor and places both me and him in range before extending his fist. In that case, I will first make you powerless, and then destroy what you hold dear. Kugwagwang, and I are struck by his fist. On is sent flying, but each time that happens, I fill him with strength again. Seeing this, Hyeon Rang's eyes flare as he mutters. It will not end like this. I have no choice but to go a bit extreme. He glances toward the lower part of Mount Sumeru and reaches out his hand. LL, as the rightful heir of the head realm, beseech thee. O heavenly void furnace pierced into the head realm, release the 8 immortals and descend into my hands. Kugugugugu. At the same time, a chilling presence begins to be felt from far away, and something flies into Hyeon Rang's grasp. Compared to the size of our revealed true bodies, it is extremely small, but the moment I see it, I can't help but be shocked. Ascension Path. Yes, it is definitely the Ascension Path that was in the head realm. And while I am still flustered, the Ascension Path in Hyeon Rang's hand begins to break apart, its earth and stones falling away. What is soon revealed as a small brazier with 3 legs. Wu Wang. The moment I see that brazier, a headache strikes me, and a certain memory from the 16th cycle flickers in my mind. And immediately after, as Hyeon Rang breathes power into the brazier, its size begins to expand endlessly until it becomes as massive as our true bodies. Cooing. Soon, Hyeon Rang lifts the brazier. Coo-goo-goo-goo. Grasping the massive brazier, Hyeon Rang swings it toward us. Kwang. Say. The moment I'm struck by the brazier, I feel a different kind of pain than before. This actually hurts. It's not something like a mere immortal treasure. What I feel from it is, quite literally, the power of the Absolute. A brazier imbued with a portion of the Absolute of life. Kwang. But there's no time to even think. Hyeon Rang swings the brazier again, striking the two of us once more. The sound echoes across the entirety of Mount Sumeru, and I can't hold back as I cough up a mouthful of immortal beast true blood. How is it? Can you still afford to act so relaxed? Face me. If not, you shall be beaten to death by the heavenly void furnace. Indeed, this is a bit dangerous. It's comparable to Hyeon Mu's single strike. Then, and when I fought Hyeon Mu, I took thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of millions of her strikes. Even when my realm was lower than it is now. Of course, that was partly because Kim Young-hoon was keeping Hyeon Mu in check so she couldn't fully focus on me. Still, the fact remains that I endured countless strikes from a heavenly venerable back during the Hyeon Mu battle. Smirking, I look up at Hyeon Rang. Go ahead and do more. The one fighting you is Ma Hung Nim, and the one who will defeat you is also Hung Nim. Even without a name, as long as I remember him, he will never lose to you. In that case, I will make you change your mind. Kurururung. Listening to my words, Hyeon Rang is struck once more by MMA's fist as he raises the heavenly void furnace. In the name of a supreme deity, I declare. Let the ownerless heavenly domain become charcoal and fuel the furnace. Kurururung. The twin holding heavenly domain beneath our feet seems to ripple. In an instant, it begins to get sucked directly into the heavenly void furnace. CN. This is a bit dangerous. Warurururuk. In the blink of an eye, the heavenly void furnace devours an entire heavenly domain and begins to burn, using it as fuel. Kurururur. The heavenly void furnace, having incinerated an entire heavenly domain, begins to burn with black flames. Kwang. Hyeon Rang swings the heavenly void furnace, now spewing black fire, at us. The massive brazier strikes both me and Mam. Kahayak. Indeed, this strike is enough to put my mind in a daze the moment it hits me. If I hadn't defended Mam, he would have likely died in a single blow. But I grin. That so-called heavenly void furnace, it doesn't seem like you can use it for long. You seem to be misunderstanding. Apologies, but I can swing it 2,000 more times. Before you can swing it 2,000 times, I think those enraged enough to kill you will appear. At those words, Hyeon Rang looks down toward the lower parts of Mount Sumeru. From that direction, 8 beams of light burst forth, exuding a terrifying killing intent toward us. I did wonder why the Radiance 8 immortals were staying silent while Hyeon Rang committed this madness. Judging by what he said while summoning the heavenly void furnace, it seems he had temporarily suppressed the Radiance 8 immortals using the furnace. But now that he has brought out the heavenly void furnace, the Radiance 8 immortals are reappearing. Hyeon Rang. From the distant heavenly king heavenly domain, the emblem of the black snake biting its tail is being summoned. And something about this emblem is different from all the ones before. Shiver. That output. I see. They may be a fake supreme deity, but a supreme deity is still a supreme deity. Gradually, the origin essence of light is also becoming capable of drawing power from other timelines, just like the other supreme deities. It's possible that the other Radiance immortals, other than Sword Spear, will begin retrieving memories from other timelines as well. And unlike the other supreme deities, whose borrowed power from other timelines only amplifies strength by tenfold at best, the Radiance supreme deity is different. Just the sheer magnitude of power they are drawing from other timelines is different. This is becoming a real nuisance. In a way, the Radiance mantra seems to be the most optimal mantra for enhancing the Radiance supreme deity's strength. Coo-goo-goo-goo-goo. I smile as I watch the emblem of the black snake biting its tail being summoned. Whether it's fortunate or not, the overwhelming increase in the borrowed power appears to have made it impossible to summon the symbol as quickly as before. However, no matter how slow it may be, it won't give Hyeon Rang the time needed to strip away all of my name. Now then, go wild all you want. The time limit is, until the wrath-filled power of the Radiance 8 Immortals comes flying in. How confident you are. Do you truly believe you can endure until then without retaliating at all, just taking hit after hit? It's a bit difficult right now. But that doesn't matter. Young Sung. Pot. Young Sung appears at my side, looking at me with eyes filled with anticipation. I hand him the coordinates of the outer sea where I encountered the heavenly venerable of time. Northern Dipper sealing immortal flags. The release condition for one of the 3 remaining flags. Obtain a clue regarding the coordinates of the outer sea where the heavenly venerable of time resides, and deliver them to the subordinates of the heavenly venerable of time. In other words, if I just deliver these coordinates to the Northern Dipper 7 heavenly lords and Young Sung Cheolkang, this seal will be released. Among the 7 Northern Dipper sealing immortal flags, only the ones with the conditions, defeat 3 supreme deities in battle, and take the single strike of all the Radiance 8 immortals in order, now remain. As for being struck by the Radiance 8 immortals, it's not going too well, probably because it's hard to maintain the order. The moment 5 of the Northern Dipper sealing immortal flags are released, Kurururum. The power surging within my body expels all the fatal injuries I've just sustained, granting me the strength to endure against Hyeon Rang for even longer. Hit me all you want. Copyright. I look at Hyeon Rang and continue. One will not fight you. The moment I act will only be after him defeats the naming supreme deity, only when the naming supreme deity takes his final breath. This is between him and the naming supreme deity, a matter between master and disciple. By doing this, do you think you will be able to save Oh Yun Sok? Point 2 His name has already been stolen by my hand. Even if I die, he will also die. You will never be able to save him in this timeline. That is exactly why I will not fight you. What? 2. Our lives may continue, but Hung Nim's life, this is the last of it. Of course, if he awakens as a heavenly king, this life may continue. But that remains only in the realm of possibility. It is not a reality of this moment. Kwang, Ama's fist strikes Hyeon Rang in the stomach. Hyeon Rang looks down at him with eyes that suggest he feels no significant impact. Right now, the gap between him and Hyeon Rang is as wide as the gap between Hyeon Rang and me. There's no way he can land a fatal blow. And because this is the end, I will respect Hung Nim's end. At those words, Hyeon Rang silently swings the heavenly void furnace and strikes both me and Mam away. Kwang. Now, no more words are exchanged. Hyeon Rang swings the heavenly void furnace at me and Mam, and I block it. And Mao, taking advantage of the opportunity, uses the power he received from me and drives his fist into Hyeon Rang's chest. Heavenly shatter. With MMA's cry, a fist of light burrows into Hyeon Rang's chest. Hyeon Rang shows no response. Heavenly shatter. Heavenly shatter. Heavenly shatter. No matter how many times the strike lands, again and again. Hyeon Rang does not respond. Though I continue supplying him with power, perhaps the strain of forcing it out is putting a mental strain as Hung Nim's voice grows quieter and his strength begins to fade. Heavenly shatter. Heavenly shatter. Heavenly shatter. Heavenly shatter. From the will of a true immortal, to mental speech. From mental speech, to spoken voice. Before long, Hung Nim's mind has weakened to the point he can barely muster the strength of a mortal being. Else this the power of the one you believe in? Hyeon Rang looks at him with pity. How pathetic. He cannot even scratch me. Even if the stolen name does not lead to death, it is clear he will die simply from exhausting all his chi. So the connection you believe in, only amounts to this level of strength. Even if enders are said to bring about miracles, if the difference in rank is too big, nothing can occur. Kook. Heavenly shatter. At last, Um's punch, now reduced to the level of a mere mortal, launches forward. Kwang. Hyeon Rang swings the heavenly void furnace once more, striking me who protects him. This is actually better for me. You, fight me to protect your weakened friend. He is now already no different from dead. Talk. Point to oh dear. Soon, Hyeon Rang taps his massive body and clicks his tongue as he sees Mum stop moving entirely. From the Heavenly King Heavenly Domain, the snake is nearly complete, and the fire blazing from Hyeon Rang's heavenly void furnace reaches its peak. And Wah finally closes his eyes. Without being able to accomplish anything, he died. This is the connection you cherished so dearly. And then, I thrust my fist lightly into the chest of the Western Zero King, in the exact same posture Mam had used. What are you? Immediately after, the Western Zero King, Hyeon Rang, staggers in place, unable to hold himself up. 12. You said miracles do not occur. You are wrong. Wu Wang, I retract my energy and transform my main body, returning to my human form. It has already happened. It was not just a simple punch. It was a signal a disciple used to call upon his master. The Western Zero King Hyeon Rang clashes with the personality of the body's original owner, the human Hyeon Rang, momentarily causing him to lose control of his body. As I witness this, I collect the remains of whose name I cannot recall. On's face is unrecognizable due to his name being stolen. But truly, he looks at peace. I may not know much about the power of my own connection, but the power of your connection seems to be just that much. Inside the Hyeon Rang who awakened to the will of the future king, the personality of the human Hyeon Rangul, who accepted him as a disciple, taught him, interacted with him, and gave him his affection. Awakened at last in the face of man's relentless call. Do you understand? The connections between people, especially the connection between a master and disciple, are not something you can take lightly. From the moment Hua resolved himself, victory was already decided. Kugugugugu. A massive pillar of light targets us, and for the first time, Hyeon Rang panics and cries out. If I move to the next timeline. I lay down Hung Nim's body and smile within the pillar of light fired by the Radiance Supreme Deity. Are you saying you intend to flee? From the connection of master and disciple? It's useless. Whether it's the next timeline or the next place, no matter where you try to run, you cannot escape. MMA's heart has already reached you once. Hyeon Rang has the ability to steal the opponent's name and make them gradually vanish as if poisoned. And, AMU, by conveying meaning into Hyeon Rang's chest, injected into him a poison even more powerful than what Hyeon Rang has spread. That poison's name is not established by words or speech. FZ. As I vanish with him within the Radiance Supreme Deity's strike, crossing into the next timeline, I steal my resolve. Life must never be abandoned carelessly. But now, having inherited the resolve of MMA, just this once, even if I must die 100 times over, I will reconnect the connection between master and disciple. 720. Kugugugugugugu. Time rewinds. Within the flow of reversing time, I gaze up at the sky. Beneath the black sky, I see new beings, and fallen beings also come into view. The ring and seat symbolizing the heavenly venerable of the underworld still shine the brightest. And the seat of the great mountain supreme deity now shines just as brightly. The two seats shine the brightest, and beneath them, the seats and rings of the naming supreme deity, swallowing heaven supreme deity, liberation supreme deity, and emptiness supreme deity emit their light. The seat of the heavenly punishment supreme deity, which was taken by Jaeon Myung-hoon, has completely vanished. And the seats of the Sal Tree heavenly venerable and the heavenly venerable of void have grown so faint they are nearly invisible. The heavenly venerable of time, perhaps having recovered some strength compared to before, shines to a certain extent, but still dimmer than the seats of the supreme deities. The seats of the heavenly punishment, Sal Tree, and void are either completely gone or so faint they are no different from being gone. So, in truth, only the 6 seats of the underworld, great mountain, naming, swallowing heaven, liberation, and emptiness remain. However, the seat of time barely clings on, making it look as though 7 seats still shine. And then, there are the new seats that have appeared. Golden Speed Heavenly King Pound FE. Red Pearl Cycling Heavenly King F3585E. Lapis Lazuli Flower Heavenly King Beer E. 3 governing immortals have fallen from the existing order. 3 new heavenly kings have joined. In the end, among the seats in the sky capable of influencing the world, the count returns back to the original number of 10. As I ascend against the flow of time, I sense Jaeon Myung-hoon and Kong Min-hee becoming aware of me and following me into the new cycle. Compared to before, this warmth is truly extravagant. I sense the warmth of those following me and smile sorrowfully. But, those who are left behind, while the other comrades might one day become heavenly kings and regain memories of past cycles. What should be done for those who have no such possibility? Pot. Before I know it, I have returned once more, and with a melancholic heart in the new cycle, I softly call out the name of the one most precious to me who was unable to regress with me. Ran. Now, everything with my child has vanished beyond that timeline. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. As I recall that, I feel an uncontrollable trembling in my heart. Perhaps, because time has reversed, the name, Oh Yun-sok, comes back to me. My friend lives again, and has not died. However, my child remains unborn. At that fact, I am seized by a hollowness so great I cannot even find the words. Did I do the right thing? Countless questions drift through my mind, and the painful turmoil sets fire to my chest. Just as my heart wavers. Chiok. Someone grabs my shoulder. You. Jaeon Myung-hoon stands to my left, placing his hand on my shoulder and nodding. My point of regression is the outer sea. But perhaps because he himself is now a heavenly king, he can cross such distances in an instant. And just as I stare blankly at him, someone suddenly grabs my right shoulder. It's Kong Min-hee. Seo Eun-yun. I have something to say. In this outer sea, where the great mountain supreme deity for some reason refrains from attacking me and conceals his presence, Jaeon Myung-hoon speaks quietly. Honestly, we never had a proper moment to talk. I figured I can't keep putting it off, so I'm saying it now. What is it? It's something I realized after recalling the past cycles, but, you really did save us a lot. Even though I tried to throw you as fox food. El Kook. We all let out a small laugh at Jaeon Myung-hoon's half-joking words. To be honest, back then, I was going to beat you up and offer you up in place of Seo Eun-yun. Kong Min-hee recalls the first cycle and brings up her true feelings from that time, and Jaeon Myung-hoon looks at her with a slightly appalled expression. At the sight, I let out another faint chuckle. My gloomy and shaken heart, thanks to them, has settled down just a little. S0, what is it you want to say? All of us, were saved by you. Jaeon Myung-hoon drops his smile and continues in a more serious tone. So, Seo Eun-yun, you are now, no, honestly, since long ago, regardless of status or relationship from Earth, you are essentially our pillar. You are our Lord Pound 50. You're telling me to stop wavering because I'm the leader. I try to read their inner thoughts using Indra's net, but perhaps they did something with the power of the Absolute before coming to the outer sea, because I can't read their inner thoughts easily. So I ask them directly to understand their true feelings. Yeah, even for your sake, wavering is. I'm not trying to tell you to not waver. Jaeon Myung-hoon cuts me off and speaks. If it's to steady your wavering heart, we'll do whatever it takes. So Seo Eun-yun, give us your command. What? 2. At my response, this time Kong Min-hee speaks. You are our head, our leader, our lord. So, if there's something that brings pain to your heart, give us your order. If you give us your command, we'll do anything to carry it out. Just like you face the impossible for us, we'll face any impossibility for you. So Seo Eun-yun, your pain, share it with us. Tell us to achieve what you want the most, and command us. What are you saying? What I want the most is. Seo Eun-yun, what's your dream? What? Your dream, the desire you most long to fulfill. Tell us. And, command us to help you achieve it. Kong Min-hee, I appreciate the sentiment, but, my dream is your dream. All of you making it back home and living happily is more than enough. Seo Eun-yun. Then, Kong Min-hee looks me straight in the eyes and leans in close. Her forehead nearly touches mine. Is it perhaps due to the power of the Absolute? Kong Min-hee's eyes are dyed deep blue. Within those deep blue eyes, I feel a warmth, like I'm being embraced. Say it. What? The desire you carry. Before, I couldn't read you at all, but now I can. Only after becoming a heavenly king did I learn your greatest secret, and through that secret, could infer it. Tell me, Seo Eun-yun. No, I don't want to ask my friends for the impossible. But as if reading my heart, Kong Min-hee speaks again. Tell us, Seo Eun-yun. You don't need to ask. Just give the command. If you do, we will make it happen, no matter what. No, Jaeon Myung-hoon opens his mouth. I ask you as a friend. Give us the command, Seo Eun-yun. Boo-doo-dook. No, how do they know? Even if they've discovered the truth about regression, this secret was the one buried deep inside. How in the world do they? As your friend, and, as your child's friend, I'm asking you. No. At Kong Min-hee's words, I grit my teeth, feeling as if my entire body is about to collapse. But I must endure. If I say it, they will continuously grind themselves down in pursuit of an impossible goal. For the sake of my personal desire, I cannot force sacrifice upon my friends. Give the command, Seo Eun-yun. Just one word is enough. Just like how you risked your life countless times to save us, let us also risk our lives for the dream you desire. NS. This too, is our choice and our life. Please remember that. Kong, minimum. He, Jaeon, Myung, Hoon, I feel my body trembling uncontrollably. Even I, who possess a transcendental level of self-discipline that has reached the ultimate of martial arts, cannot control my lips. More than the pressure of any absolute existence I've ever felt until now, Kong Minhee and Jaeon Myung-hoon's request is harder to endure. No, it is impossible. Command, you. I speak with my hands and feet shaking, my voice trembling, and tears flowing. I'm the worst. Just by placing this impossible burden on those I hold dear, I find myself unable to endure, feeling pathetic and repulsive at myself. In the end, I want to meet them again. I said it. I spit out to them the desire I had most desperately yearned for in my heart. I want to meet the connections of my past, just once more, again. I want to turn back time, the most contradictory statement for a regressor. But that's how desperate I am. I want to go to those past timelines and meet the connections from those timelines once more. Just knowing that they weren't illusions that ceased to exist was an overwhelming salvation in itself. But perhaps it's true when they say human desire has no end. The moment I realized the truth, I couldn't suppress the new yearning. Until now, I've only endured through transcendent self-restraint, never speaking it aloud. But I want to meet them again. In whatever form. Please, let me meet my past connections, the life of that past time, again. Thus, I spill forth my deepest and greatest desire to return to the timelines already past. Before Kong Minhee and Jaeon Myung-hoon. Before my most beloved friends. I reveal it all. Cheok, I've said it before, but you are already our Lord. Jaeon Myung-hoon lowers his head in a bow. Therefore, if you command it, then as many times as you wish. Kong Minhee steps back from me and bows with her eyes ablaze. We shall obey your command. At those words, Kong Minhee grabs my hand, and Jaeon Myung-hoon takes hold of my arm from the opposite side and stomps his foot down. Kurururung. It happens in an instant. We begin transcending the world, turning into a single streak of lightning. Pachajijik. Jaeon Myung-hoon seems to accelerate faster than light in an instant, then immediately reaches Kim Yeon and Oh Hai-seo in the outer sea, snatches them up, and sets them down in Mount Sumeru before accelerating again. Huol. Jaeon Myung-hoon. I begin to panic as I see Jaeon Myung-hoon squeezing out far more strength than necessary. And at that moment, Jaeon Myung-hoon's form begins to change. He begins to draw forth all his power from the origin essence of heavenly punishment and the absolute. Jaeon Myung-hoon's body transforms. With 3 eyes on one head, 3 heads on one neck, and 4 arms on each shoulder, he changes into the form of a Vajra. Kwajijik. Transformed into the figure of 3 heads, 9 eyes, and 8 arms, and having drawn out all the power of the absolute, Jaeon Myung-hoon lets out a great roar. Kuhal. Kurururung. For an instant, I feel Jaeon Myung-hoon transcend the world at transcendent speed, using the power of the absolute. At that moment, I see a familiar scene. This is the very beginning point of creation that I once reached with Kim Young-hoon. The outskirts of the Akashic records. The other side of space-time. The flow of countless timelines shaped like a baby becomes visible up close. However, while Kim Young-hoon had moved so far that the baby looked small, Jaeon Myung-hoon, whether due to the nature of his authority or his strength, has only barely moved away from it. I can break away for a moment if I add the spell returning lightning strike on top of my authority of the absolute. Kurururung. With returning lightning strike, he can partially break away from the very timeline I regress into. Is this the authority of Jaeon Myung-hoon, who has reached Heavenly King? As one flinch in shock, Kong Minhee, who is holding my hand, tightens her grip and speaks. Look, Seo Eun-yun, this is the way we intend to repay you. Cha-cha-cha-cha-shay. And then, as her next action unfolds, my eyes widen. I tremble, struck by a shock greater than anything I have ever received. The lines extending from Kong Minhee intertwine and twist together, forming another Indra's net. She is creating a law web that belongs to her. But it doesn't end there. Her law web seems to grow thicker and darker, and soon it extends to those far reaches of space-time, taking on yet another form. It rather resembles a hammock-like bridge. Korarararik. Then, from Kong Minhee's body, overwhelming dark blue petals begin to flow out, completing the bridge. Splurt. And perhaps due to the excessive forceful use of her authority, divine blood pours out from all 7 of Kong Minhee's orifices. Kong Minhee. But despite my cry, she continues to wring out her authority with the resolve to burn away her life. Huol. Quarararik. The lines of law form the bones, and the petals that flow out from Kong Minhee's body form the flesh. Urururung. Kong Minhee's form transforms in an instant. She bears a medicine bottle atop her head, and has changed into the image of a bodhisattva radiating a blue hue from her entire body. Her essence is the lapis lazuli flower heavenly king BES7EXE, is revealed, and she radiates the power of the absolute. Stop it, Kong Minhee. And only when I shout in desperation does she finally realize that no matter how much more power she squeezes out, the bridge can no longer be completed. She gives a self-deprecating smile and ceases her effort. Half of the massive bridge is complete. Look, Seo Eun-yun. Kong Minhee returns to her original form and pants heavily. I hold her, who seems about to collapse, in my arms. And at the same time, I gaze blankly at the half-bridge she has created. The end of that bridge points toward the 201th cycles. Timeline. Suual. Jaeon Myeon-hoon has also returned to his original form, having exhausted all of his strength, and we begin to be pulled back into the timeline under the attraction force of the 2012th cycle. The familiar Mount Sumeru begins to appear once again. As we are pulled into Mount Sumeru, Kong Minhee and Jaeon Myeong-hoon firmly grasp my hands. It's not impossible. We will make your dream come true. If we combine our strength, it's definitely possible. So, Seo Eun-yun. She smiles confidently, just like before, and says, "Don't be too sad. I'll bear your sorrow for you. And everyone will push you forward. From now on, let's go together." I grit my teeth against the rising surge in my chest. Until now, I have been so utterly alone. No one who stood by me understood my situation. I wasn't even allowed to speak this secret to anyone, so for a long and longer time. Lee, thank you. I lived burying an impossible dream in my heart. I embrace Kong Minhee and Jaeon Myeong-hoon tightly, shedding tears as we fall together back into Mount Sumeru. When everything is over, with everyone together, let's watch the story I went through. Yeah, once everything is over, let's definitely do that. The first day of the 2012th cycle. Thanks to the friends who are now becoming heavenly kings one by one, I receive the greatest comfort I could ever be given and reaffirm my goal. No, more accurately, perhaps I should say that a dream has been born. My dream is to someday look back on all the past timelines together with my friends. All together, with no one dying, and everyone safe. If that alone could be achieved, then life would be the greatest blessing of all. Life is. Kim Yeon and the immortal treasures who notice my existence in Mount Sumeru come toward us to receive us. Hong Fan rushes over in a hurry with open arms toward us, who are falling from outside the timeline, and Kim Yeon, using the power of the bright cold realm, heals our internal injuries inflicted from transcending the timeline. A blessing, Master. Hong Fan flies over to me and asks how I am, and I smile in the embrace of my friends. From far away, the presence of the naming supreme deity is felt. Since the point of my regression is the outer sea, it seems Hyeon Rang has kidnapped Yun Sok Hung Nim, taking advantage of that gap, as I can sense his presence from Hyeon Rang's direction. And judging by how I am gradually forgetting Om Sok's name, it seems the name retrieval is steadily progressing. After a while, I can no longer remember MMA's name no matter how hard I try, and I rise to my feet and look toward where Hyeon Rang is. Everyone. At my words, everyone turns to look at me, and I quietly entrust a part of my burden to my friends. Please help me. Thanks to Kong Minhee and Jaeon Myeong-hoon, I have come to understand. They are no longer young mortal beings I must protect with my own hands. They are now, each and every one of them, true comrades. Thus, leaning on the shoulders of my comrades, I stand up and begin to discuss the operation to rescue him and annihilate Hyeon Rang.